The story begins with a man standing atop a mountain of corpses. He asked Luo Wei why this had been done to him, remembering they were like brothers who had fought together through life and death. Luo Wei reminded him of the beginning of the calamity. Monsters emerged from strange spatial rifts, sowing chaos everywhere. Over time, these rifts were named dungeons, and those who came into contact with them gained mysterious powers known as classes. For this reason, the class core was formed to conquer the dungeons, and they advanced triumphantly. Luo Wei began to stare intently at the protagonist, revealing that this was precisely why he had to be eliminated. The man had become uncontrollable. Powerful class users could easily disrupt the Empire's order, and he, having surpassed even the Triple S rank, was the most dangerous enemy of all. Supreme power had to remain in the hands of the royal family, as only then could the Empire remain stable. With eyes gleaming with rage, the protagonist questioned if this was an excuse to slaughter his family and comrades. With malice in his eyes, Luo Wei clarified that he was doing this for the stability of the Empire. Just before the protagonist could take another breath, Luo Wei triggered a powerful explosion, revealing that he had tampered with his armor long ago. The explosion would also inject a compound poison into his wounds. Luo Wei knew that after an SSS rank battle, the protagonist would not have the strength to resist. To ensure this, Luo Wei had prepared an entire army, considering it his final show of respect. Just before dying, the protagonist began to recall memories of the moments spent with Luo Wei. At that moment, his hidden skill, Mirror World, met its activation conditions. Mirror World, an SSS rank hidden skill, was the ultimate ability that reverted everything. He lost his life, and his soul sank into a lake. Decades later, a pair of boys were torturing another boy, tying him to a tree and submerging his body in the lake. One of them punched him in the stomach and told his friend to dunk him again. As they tortured him, they couldn't help but mock him, deciding to keep him underwater longer to teach him a lesson if he kept pretending. His expression seemed hilarious to them, and they planned to pull him out, only to beat him a few more times. The boy could no longer hold his breath. He didn't know why he always had to be the one suffering. At that moment, the protagonist's soul began to awaken. A boy with glasses approached the bullies and told them to stop, as the other boy was going to die. One of the bullies turned around and, with an arrogant gaze, retorted that if he was about to die, he should just heal himself, as that's what a shanter was for, though he knew it wouldn't be much use. He then mentioned that the boy with glasses was a hypocrite, as he had been the one to lead them all to find him. Therefore, if the boy died, it would be his fault. The boy with glasses panicked, explaining that he only did it because they had forced him. This angered the bully, who prepared to hit him, but then something strange happened, and a powerful light began to emerge from the lake. The bullies started to flee the scene, screaming in terror about the appearance of a dungeon and the need to escape, as a new dungeon was beyond their capabilities. The attention of the boy with glasses was fixed on the boy they were torturing. Seeing that he was still submerged in the water, he started running toward the rope, knowing he had to save him. At that moment, the lake dried up completely, and monsters began to appear. The boy with glasses started to untie the knots, and while he was distracted, one of the monsters lunged at him. But just then, the boy who was tied up grabbed him by the clothes and pulled him out of the attack's path. Then he extended his hand and used a skill called Glacial Impact. The system informed him that he had used Basic Heal on Minor Demon A, but the action had failed because the target's HP was already full. The boy with glasses panicked, not understanding why he was healing the monster. When the monster tried to attack again, he summoned a shield, blocking the attack just in the nick of time. When the protagonist opened the information window, he saw that his name was Yun Che, and he had the Chanter class. He realized he had used a healing spell, and that this was not his original body. Normally, when someone touched a dungeon, they would bind to the system and obtain a random starting class, which should be unchangeable. After that, they would grow and become stronger through the dungeon, gaining skills tied to their class. However, he had been a warrior who had reached the pinnacle. Back then, he had used a skill called Mirror World. After that, he was trapped in the Mirror World until he heard the dying cry of that boy. He finally realized that he had been revived in that boy's body. This was not exactly a happy thought, but he still thanked the boy for giving him a chance at revenge. The boy with glasses informed Yunche that the monsters were surrounding them and asked for immediate help, as he could only handle 3 at most. The protagonist knew his body was too weak. Even these small enemies were beyond his capabilities. At their speed, he couldn't even run. Opening his skill window, he realized they were all useless. Basic Heal restored 1 to 4 HP to a target, and Entangling Vines summoned vines to immobilize a single enemy with a low success rate. Chanter was too specialized. Its strengths were in support, but it was outclassed in every role. It was no wonder this class was always looked down upon. For now, with his old combat instincts, he could resist briefly. Yuncha dodged the monster's attack, knowing he needed a quick way out, as he would die if his stamina ran out. Now, the hidden skill, Mirror World, was his only hope. The protagonist dodged an attack without knowing how the skill worked and then touched the monster, but the skill failed as the conditions were not met. He didn't know if his level was too low or if it needed a real mirror. When he used the skill on the monster again, it failed once more due to his level being insufficient. Noticing this, he concluded that Mirror World needed a reflective surface to activate. The level issue couldn't be solved yet, so he decided to try another target. When the protagonist used the skill on the monster's weapon, it failed again due to his insufficient level. He tried the skill on a tattered loincloth, but it also failed for the same reason. The boy with glasses panicked and told him to stop wasting time with his useless skills, as he couldn't hold on much longer. A burst of energy descended from the sky, and a monster called a malformed overlord, level 10, appeared. The boy with glasses knew they were dead. An elite monster like this required at least level 10 to be defeated. Several more bursts of energy began to descend from the sky, and his eyes widened in fear, causing him to fall to the ground. Hundreds of fierce monsters appeared before them. While the protagonist was busy using his skill, the monsters began to charge toward them. Yunche couldn't even use his skill on rocks, wondering if the level gap was too large. Then, the protagonist decided to use his skill on Xiaoji's makeshift barrier, but the system informed him that it had failed, as the skills of others could not be reversed. Upon realizing he couldn't reverse others' skills, a smile spread across his face, as this meant he could reverse his own. Once the protagonist used the skill on his own ability, it revealed that Mirror World had successfully reversed his Entangling Vine skill. Yunche used Chaotic Thorns, causing thousands of thorns to erupt from the ground. When one of the monsters tried to attack, another monster surrounded by a red aura struck it, saving Xiaoji. He was somewhat confused, not knowing what was happening, but the protagonist realized that the skill's effect had been completely inverted. Instead of immobilize, it now inflicted confusion. The Entangling Vines skill normally entangled a single enemy with a low chance of immobilizing it. However, its reversed upgrade, Chaotic Thorns, now caused thorns to lash out at a target with a low chance of inflicting confusion. The monsters began to attack each other. This was due to the confusion status effect, which caused afflicted units to attack random targets. The protagonist couldn't help but smile, as he realized that a useless skill had become powerful after being reversed. This made him contemplate what would happen if he reversed the rest of his skills. Mirror World truly lived up to its reputation as an SSS rank hidden skill. It not only reversed the effects of skills, but also applied an overall enhancement. If he had used the non-reverted version of this skill, the success rate would be low. The duration of the restraint would only last a second at most, not reaching its current potency. Our boy grabbed a sword that was stuck in the ground and couldn't help but wonder what would happen if he reversed his remaining skills. His attention was drawn to the skill Empowered Strike. It cost 20 mana points, had a duration of 30 seconds, and granted a 5% attack boost to one unit, with the effect ending when the unit consumed mana points. When Yunche reverted this skill, it transformed into Trick Blade. It cost 40 mana points, lasted 60 seconds, and granted a 10% attack boost for each consumption of mana points. He activated Trick Blade, and his sword began to emanate a powerful aura. He realized that each skill use granted a 10% boost in attack power. Trick Blade was active, with 60 seconds remaining on its duration. Just by activating this, any skill usage would trigger attack power increases. The potential was incredible. Yunche leveled up, now reaching level 6. He noticed that many monsters had died from their own infighting, and realized that these monsters gave a decent amount of experience upon death. When one of the monsters tried a surprise attack, our boy reacted in time and blocked the attack. Yunche's attention was drawn to his own HP bar, which had 480 HP and 120 mana points. He realized that leveling up fully restored his mana points. While the monsters remained chaotic, he decided to test this Trick Blade. Yunche activated Chaotic Thorns, consuming mana points. This triggered the effect of Trick Blade, causing a rapid decrease in his mana points, while his attack repeatedly increased by a 10% boost with each consumption. He now had 12 mana points, but his Trick Blade had resulted in a 120% attack increase, with 44 seconds remaining on its duration. His eyes began to gleam, and his attention fixed on one of the monsters charging towards him. He realized that this skill broke all conventions by allowing him to reach 2.2 times his attack power so easily. When the monster attacked, our boy deflected the blow, moved behind it, and dealt a deep gash on its back and then its stomach. Xiaoji was in shock. He couldn't believe this was Yunche, observing his movements. He wondered how a level 5 chanter could have such capability, and since when did chanters possess such skills? Our boy continued to fight the monsters, killing them one by one. With his level 6 stats, 120 mana points, and 1 mana point regeneration per second, he realized he could theoretically reach 2.3 times his attack power. In an instant, he defeated a level 11 monster and couldn't help but smile. He realized his current strength could barely handle these level 11 elites. At that moment, a hand emerged from the ground. Yunche's attention was fixed on it as a level 21 monster called Battle Fiend Chimera emerged from the ground and began to roar. It turned and massacred the smaller monsters in a single move. Chaoji's eyes filled with fear, while on the other hand, our boy felt somewhat surprised to see a hidden level 21 boss in this dungeon. The boss began to charge toward our boy. When he tried to use Chaotic Thorns, the skill failed as the monster was immune to chaos. Just before the monster could attack, Chaoji stepped in front and summoned his shield. Yunche felt somewhat surprised, and not long after, he began to see someone familiar. A blonde-haired boy called him an idiot, telling him he had asked him not to charge forward. Our boy's eyes widened. The boss attacked with force, shattering the shield Chaoji had summoned and sending his body crashing hard against the ground. Yunche rushed towards him. He extended his hand and began to use his skills. He activated Basic Heal on Chaoji, which restored 1 HP. This consumed mana points, leaving him with 54 points. Trick Blade activated, granting him a 10% damage boost. Immediately after, Basic Heal activated again on Chaoji, this time with a critical hit that restored 5 HP. Our boy's mana points reached 1. He considered that a chanter's healing skills were truly pathetic and asked Chaoji if he had any health potions. He said he had an emergency one, and our boy told him to drink it. His Trick Blade now had 85 seconds of duration left. The boss started killing the other monsters. Yunche knew he was not yet a match for this boss, but the mobs were almost all dead. He had a plan in mind. Showing his blade, he asked Chaoji to hold on for a minute, as he was going to finish off the monsters, leaving him somewhat surprised. Our boy moved like a thunderclap, slicing the monsters to pieces. The duration of his Trick Blade had reached 0. Yunche leveled up, restoring his HP and mana points to 80-120. He activated Trick Blade. By using Chaotic Thorns repeatedly, each consumption of mana points triggered the effect of Trick Blade, increasing its attack by +10% with each activation. He knew he needed at least a 400% attack boost to defeat the boss. He began to slaughter more monsters, leveling up again. This restored his mana points to 110. He activated Chaotic Thorns, which granted him a 10% attack damage boost and reduced his mana points to 101. He repeated the activation of Chaotic Thorns, gaining another 10% attack boost as his mana points dropped to 92. He realized he had to cast Chaotic Thorns 40 times in 50 seconds, which meant he needed to reach level 10. Chaoji was in shock, unable to believe what his eyes were seeing. Yunche leveled up several times. The boss prepared to attack, but our boy began to glow. He was now level 12. His Trick Blade had a 510% boost and a duration of 95 seconds, which was more than enough to face this boss. Yunche moved like lightning, cutting off its arm, then appeared behind it and launched a chain of slashes, causing the monster terrible pain. Just before it had time to react, our boy sliced its body to pieces. In the blink of an eye, he had defeated a level 21 boss that had over 10,000 HP. After killing this boss, our boy gained 3 levels, now being level 15. Chaoji was in shock and didn't know if he was dreaming, wondering if a level 5 chanter had just solo cleared an entirely new dungeon. Now that the dungeon lord had been defeated, the dungeon was cleared. He approached and asked Yunche if it was really him. The monsters dropped items, and the system prompted our boy to collect them. He wanted to know how our boy had suddenly become so strong. Our boy began to recall his past, and upon seeing Chaoji's face, he asked what his relationship was with Chao Benben. Chaoji was in shock, as he didn't know how Yunche knew his great-grandfather's nickname. Yunche was somewhat surprised to learn that he was actually the great-grandson of Chao Benben. He began to remember Chao Benben, and his eyes filled with sadness as all the people he knew had been killed by Luo Wei. Just before he could ask more about Chao Benben, Chaoji averted his gaze and mentioned that it wasn't necessary to talk about him at that moment. If Yunche didn't want to answer his question, he didn't have to say anything. There was no need to humiliate him like that. Yunche was a bit confused as he didn't know what was happening. Chaoji mentioned that, although he didn't know why, Yunche had been hiding his true strength all this time. He advised that they should return to school, since the next day, the school would organize a visit to the Modern History Memorial Hall, and skipping classes would get them noticed. Yunche couldn't help but clench his fist tightly and feel furious. He decided to listen to him, but deep down, he knew he couldn't reveal his identity yet. If Chaoji investigated too much, he could become suspicious. Yunche thought about the Modern History Memorial Hall. It should have records of what happened after he died. The next day, they boarded the subway on their way to school. The students were very excited. Times had changed a lot. After being dead for so many years, the world had mutated enormously. He couldn't believe they now used products from the dungeons to power carriages. Many things had appeared that he had never seen before. However, he had seen some of them in dungeons in the past. He opened his system inventory. He wondered if only items dropped by monsters could be taken out of a dungeon. He equipped the Chimera Bone Ring. It was a level 14 ring, formed from the rib of the Dungeon Lord of Flesh and Bone, the battlefield Chimera. It allowed the wearer to attach a Chimera limb to their body. He took the robust physique skill book from his inventory. It was of excellent quality, a passive skill type, and its learnable class was universal. He noticed that equipment like this and skill books could be taken out through the inventory. They could also be bought and sold outside of dungeons. He had the Resilient Physique skill active. It was a passive, permanent skill that reduced incoming physical damage. Things that couldn't be stored in the inventory after defeating the Lord should have disappeared along with the dungeon. His eyes began to gleam with confusion. He didn't know what had happened after his death. Not long after, he arrived at the Modern History Memorial Hall, and the first thing he saw was the statue of Luo Wei, the supreme ruler of the kingdom, the emperor who had ended the dungeon disasters. The teacher began to guide the students through the Modern History Memorial Hall. He explained that many students knew that this very place, more than 50 years ago, had been the battlefield of that famous rebellion. The teacher explained that back then, they were deeply afflicted by the dungeons. He added that, especially after the most terrifying triple S rank dungeon appeared, everyone lived in fear. King Luo Wei personally led the professional army on an expedition. Despite suffering heavy casualties, he finally conquered this terrifying dungeon. But just at that moment, he encountered a long-planned rebellion. Its mastermind, as everyone knew, was Yun Che. Yun Che was the same man deeply trusted by the king, but who ultimately became an ungrateful traitor. Yun Che couldn't help but feel furious seeing that this was what history had become. They were the ones who cleared the triple S rank dungeon and the ones who were ambushed. The teacher clenched his fist, mentioning that they couldn't imagine the pain of being betrayed under such circumstances. But their king overcame this sorrow and fought with blood and courage. Finally, with the help of the hero Ding Kun, he successfully suppressed the rebellion. Yun Che's eyes filled with curiosity upon hearing the name Ding Kun. He wondered if such a person existed. The bullies who had been torturing Yun Che in the lake appeared and felt somewhat confused to notice that they were still alive. They wondered how this was possible since he and Chiao had been dragged into the newly formed dungeon. One of the bullies mentioned that the dungeon had been cleared. He thought that for a new dungeon to be cleared so quickly, a master must have been nearby. According to him, they were incredibly lucky to have found that master. Our boy's attention fixed on them, realizing that they were the bastards who had been torturing the owner of his body. Everyone began to approach Ding Shu to find out what he was talking about, reacting with total disbelief. They wondered if he had really encountered a new dungeon and, more shockingly, if he had survived a disaster within it. Ding Shu put his arm around Chiao Ju's shoulder and mentioned that he was quite lucky to have made it out alive. He began to whisper, revealing that they had almost dragged them into that dungeon that day and demanded to know how they planned to settle this debt. Chiao Ju panicked, making it clear that it was Ding Shu's fault. He threatened to report him, accusing him of almost causing his and Yun Che's deaths. Ding Shu grabbed Chiao Ju by the head, questioning what was going through his mind and realizing that he didn't seem to have any idea of the situation at all. Ding Shu sked Chiao Ju to look at the statue in front of them and observe his ancestor being trampled upon by the hero. He revealed that he was the traitor, Chiao En, and Chiao Ji was his descendant. Finally, he asked if he really thought anyone would take his side. Ding Shu began to shout, saying that Chiao Ju could insult him, but he could not insult his ancestor, leaving poor Chiao Ji in shock. Everyone started to gather around, knowing that Ding Shu's grandfather was the hero Ding Kun. Upon hearing this, our boy's eyes began to gleam with rage. The students realized that the person next to them was Chiao Ji, the descendant of Chiao En. To them, the descendant of a traitor insulting a hero was a sign of a world turned upside down. They recalled that his ancestor, Chiao En, had slaughtered many people, and if the hero hadn't intervened, who knows how many more would have died. Ding Shu began to feign, making it clear that he didn't care what he said about him behind his back, but he couldn't allow him to insult his ancestor to his face. The teacher approached Chiao Ju, placed a hand on his shoulder, and asked him to apologize. He told him that, as his teacher, he had always been fair, and reminded him that the hero had forgiven his family in the past. He concluded that, even if he didn't feel gratitude for this, he had no right to defame him. After saying this, the teacher left. Ding Shu placed a hand on his head and revealed that if he gave him a beating in public, people would only cheer him on. No one was going to help a vicious dog that was being beaten, and besides, Chiao Ji was a particularly despised dog. He grabbed Chiao Ji by the hair and asked if he really believed that he, the descendant of a hero, could be wrong. He prepared to hit Chiao Ji, but at that moment, someone kicked him in the face, sending him to the ground. Chiao Ji's eyes widened in surprise. It was Yun Che, his eyes glowing with rage. He questioned if the hero's family didn't have time to discipline their brats. The students started recording, wondering if it was really Yun Che. They commented that he seemed like a completely different person and couldn't believe he had dared to strike Ding Shu. According to them, he was crazy, and some remembered he was only level 5. the weakest in his class, so they wondered what had happened to him to make him dare to hit Ding Shu. He had no parents and had always been too gloomy to have friends, so they thought he had lost his mind. Ding Shu wiped his cheek, making it clear that Yun Che was just a punching bag who should be grateful that Ding Shu wasn't coming after him. He couldn't believe he had still dared to attack him while he wasn't paying attention. He and his friends started charging towards our boy. Yun Che moved like thunder, dodging their attacks and striking them before they could react. Ding Shu fell to his knees on the ground and started spitting blood. The students began to murmur among themselves. Ding Shu was in shock, as he couldn't believe how fast Yun Che was. The students were somewhat confused as they didn't know what had happened. They questioned how he had been taken down again so easily, and if Ding Shu was, in fact, a weakling. Ding Shu exploded with rage, unable to believe how a trash tier level 5 support could suddenly be stronger than him. Immediately, he used the skill Hell, which increased his attack power by 25%. He equipped the Fire-Forged Hammer, which granted him 314 points of attack power. He thought Yun Che had just gotten lucky and, without wasting another second, he lunged at him. Our boy moved quickly and, taking advantage of the opening, punched him in the jaw. He was using the skill, Blade of Trickery, which increased his attack power by 80%. Ding Shu was in shock. Our boy kicked him, sending him crashing hard to the ground. The guard arrived and, seeing Yun Che stepping on Ding Shu, asked if there was a healer. The students were in shock seeing how fast Yun Che was. They remembered he was only level 5. Even the blonde girl and her friend were in shock. The guard made it clear that fighting was forbidden inside the hall due to the risk of damaging something, and then asked the teacher why he couldn't control his students. The teacher started walking towards Yun Che. He had not only insulted a hero, but had now also dared to assault his descendant. According to him, Yun Che was shameless. The teacher unsheathed his sword, and Yun Che's attention fixed on him. Our boy used the ring, and when the teacher tried to attack, his sword shattered into pieces, leaving everyone in shock. Yun Che mentioned that they should set aside the discussion of who was shameless for a moment. He pointed out to the teacher that, although he claimed to be fair, he seemed to have only listened to Ding Shu's side of the story, and he questioned him directly, asking if he was trying to curry favor with his family. The teacher told him to stop talking nonsense, and then his gaze fixed on our boy's ring. He wondered what kind of equipment it was, since, although he hadn't used his full strength, it had managed to block his attack. As a powerful aura emanated from his body, Yun Che clarified that it was just a casual comment, and added that he didn't believe the teacher was that type of person. The students were in shock as they couldn't believe Yun Che had even been able to block the teacher's attack. The teacher promised that he would thoroughly investigate the cause of this conflict. Internally, he wondered where Yun Che had obtained that kind of equipment, and if he too had some kind of backing. The ring Yun Che wore was the Chimera Bone Ring, whose durability was already damaged by 37%. Despite being of epic quality, it was still just equipment obtained from a level 21 lord, so using it against the level 35 teacher was pushing it too far. Yun Che asked to be expelled from the hall as punishment, along with Chiao. Chiao stood up and began to follow our boy with a confused gaze. The students couldn't believe that Yun Che had been able to block the teacher's attack and wondered if this was something a student could do. The teacher asked his students to use a healing spell on Ding Shu, and in the meantime, our boy and Chiao left the hall. He was sad, as he couldn't believe that in the end, no one had survived, and Ben had been killed long ago by that so-called hero. His gaze fixed on Chiao, and he thought that if he asked him anything now, he would answer without thinking. He coughed and mentioned that his knowledge of history wasn't very good, so he asked him to recount the specific deeds of that hero, Ding Kun. Chiao became nervous, mentioning that, although he wasn't sure if he remembered correctly, it seemed the hero Ding Kun had discovered the great villain Yun Che's conspiracy beforehand. He recounted that he had prepared an ambush near the SSS rank dungeon to provide support, and that was how the entire rebellion crisis was resolved. Yun Che felt somewhat surprised. He began to remember his past life and how they had been ambushed. Chiao explained that the hero Ding Kun aspired to solve the dungeon crisis since he was young and always trained hard for it. After being promoted by the king, he fought across the country for years, saving various places from crises, like the very famous Great Cataclysm of Winterfell City. Yun Che began to gaze at the ground and ponder. The image of his past self standing on a mountain of corpses came to his mind. With a sad expression, Yun Che asked about the sword held by the hero's statue. Chiao explained that it was the Flowing Cloud sword, and added that, as the story went, it was the sword the hero had used to execute the traitor Yun Che. It was a top-tier piece of equipment. Yun Che's eyes began to glow with rage, as they had not only stolen his glory and achievements, but had even taken his sword. Then he decided that he would kill Ding Kun first. Outside the Ding family compound, several high-level warriors were patrolling. Suddenly, the eyes of one of them began to glow as his attention was drawn to something. Not far away, he saw Yunche and Chiao slip into an alley. He decided not to pay much attention, thinking they were just passing through the area. Noticing how alert the man was, Yunche wondered if he was a wanderer with a scout skill. Chiao suggested to Yunche that they should just leave. He argued that there were too many guards and that even if they managed to sneak in, the moment Ding Shu returned, they would be done for. Although he wanted to go and directly kill that hero, Ding Kun, he knew it wasn't possible. According to Chiao, Ding Kun spent all his time in a high-level dungeon. Unlike in his past life, one could not freely enter and exit dungeons now. The high-level ones were all guarded by the military, and a special pass was needed to enter. However, he was sure that Ding Kun's family must have such a pass in their home. Our boy asked if it was necessary for their family to keep so many guards, considering they were just one of dozens of branches descended from Ding Kun. Chiao revealed that, after all, they were descendants of a hero, and that they also had a dungeon within their property. Our boy's eyes widened in surprise to learn that they had a dungeon at home. Chiao mentioned that low-level dungeons had long been bought and sold privately, but this was not something that people without power and influence could even dream of. Ding Shu had guards with him all the time, so he could farm monsters and level up whenever he wanted. In contrast, ordinary students like them could only do so during the school's dungeon practicals, where they even had to fight over the monsters. Yunche realized that this era had changed a lot and questioned if this didn't mean that the richer and more powerful one was, the higher their level would be. Chiao nodded, revealing that an ordinary person usually graduates from school between level 15 and 20, and since many no longer have access to dungeons after that, they remain stuck at that level. If one got a job related to dungeons, like a miner or a ranger in a national dungeon, they might reach a level close to 30 by middle age. In contrast, guards like those at Ding Shu's house could take advantage of their family's dungeon, allowing them to be around level 30. To reach a higher level, one generally had to be recruited by the army or enter an official organization, such as a guild or a military academy, through school assessments. Only then could one access higher-level dungeons and reach higher levels. Our boy knew that if he wanted to become stronger, that pass was essential. Chiao suggested they just leave, arguing that the level gap was too large and that no matter how skilled he was, he would be no match for those guards. Yunche was aware that his current strength was far from enough to kill that hero, let alone the Supreme King Luo Wei, who was under layers of protection. However, he knew that the scouting skills one could learn around level 30 were generally small area skills like Eagle Eye, Enhanced Hearing, or Krat Spirit Summoning. These were not enough to cover the entire mansion compound 24 hours a day. Besides, this wasn't a life or death dungeon, and most of the guards were very complacent. He concluded that it was more than enough for him to get in. Chiao panicked. Yunche, however, took a leap and got onto the wall, thinking that compared to the almost flawless scouting in the high-level dungeons of his past life, this was much more relaxed. Chiao made it clear that even if they managed to get inside a private dungeon like this, they could be killed without any consequences. Our boy grabbed Chiao by the shirt and asked if he didn't want to change his life. Chiao admitted that he did, but he had planned to do it after joining a guild. Yunche then asked if he really believed that a guild could change things for him. Chiao, the great-grandson of the traitor Chiao En. Chiao's eyes filled with sadness. Our boy pulled him up onto the wall and made it clear that a person's destiny can only be changed in the present, not by betting on a what-if that even he himself wasn't sure of. Yunche was not going to pass up the dungeon right in front of him. He decided to let him decide for himself if he wanted to follow. Chiao began to sweat, and our boy pondered, wondering if the descendant would make the same choice as his ancestor. Chiao stood up, as he simply couldn't let him go to his death. Yunche told him not to make a sound, explaining that there were no traces of a summoning-type scouting skill in this area. Therefore, as long as they kept their voices down, avoided their line of sight, and seized the right moment, they could easily get in. Yunche grabbed Chiao and, following his plan, they managed to enter the Ding family compound. Chiao's attention was fixed on a dungeon that unfolded underground. They entered the dungeon and saw two monsters, one level 6 and the other level 8. Our boy noted that the level was slightly higher than in the previous dungeon, but the number of monsters was not as high, probably because Ding Shu's family killed them regularly. Our boy mentioned that there were only 2 small mobs and asked him to go and give it a try. Chiao couldn't help but feel scared and refused, stating that there was no way he could beat them. Our boy forced him to fight. The monsters attacked, and he summoned his shield to defend himself, still unable to believe that Yunche trusted him to win. Chiao grew nervous and thought he shouldn't have come. Now he wanted to go home. Yunche suggested he try fighting back, but Chiao asked how he was supposed to find an opportunity to fight back. Yunche assured him that he was watching and nothing bad would happen. Chiao decided to trust him, and using his shield, he attacked. But then the other monster tried to attack from behind, but he reacted in time and dodged the attack. It was just as Yunche had thought. Chaoji's talent was actually quite good. The problem was that he was always timid and panicked easily, so he only dared to defend. However, his subconscious judgment of spatial positioning was extremely accurate. Because of this, it always seemed like he was in a dangerous situation, but he didn't lose much health. Chiao attacked the monster, but his shield shattered into pieces. Yunche moved like thunder, killing the monsters. Chiao was somewhat surprised as he had leveled up. He was now level 7. Our boy explained that experience was distributed according to contribution, and that if he didn't unbalance the monsters, he wouldn't get much EXP, even if Yunche was the one who killed them. Yunche wielded the Crescentful Bone Blade, a blade formed from the condensed resentment in a leg bone, which increased his attack power by 62 and his spiritual attack by 11. Yunche noticed that Chaoji's movements were very agile and asked him how he distributed his attribute points. Chaoji revealed that, except for spirit, he generally added them evenly. Our boy recalled that shield bearers didn't usually add points to agility. Chiao explained that if he didn't, he found it difficult to find a party at school. He clarified that no one wanted to wait for a slow shield bearer, as by the time he arrived, the others would have already taken all the monsters. Yunche let out a sigh and explained that he needed to have a long-term perspective. He clarified that advanced class promotions after level 60 had attribute requirements. He gave the example of the Bastion Fortress class, which required 60 stamina and 90 defense points, concluding that he couldn't just add points randomly. Chiao mentioned that the highest an ordinary person would ever reach in their life was level 40-something and wondered how he could even think about level 60, as that was S rank. Our boy placed a hand on his shoulder and, with a smile, told him that from that moment on, he could start thinking about S rank, or things far beyond S rank. That said, he also needed to start planning his own class advancement. He reflected that his support class had only been revived thanks to the hidden skill Mirror World, and that, if nothing unexpected happened, he would probably change to another class. He was in shock as he realized something stunning. His Mirror World skill could be leveled up. In the Ding family's private dungeon, Yunche fought monsters with surprising speed. His Trick Blade skill boosted his attacks, but it ended just as he hit a level 17 zombie greed demon. The monster, still alive, showed Trick Blade's power, but also its limits in long fights. Yunche's mana and stamina were low. The monster died, confirming his body couldn't handle extended battles. The fight yielded huge rewards. Yunche gained 2 levels, reaching level 17, and his health, mana, and attribute points increased rapidly. He also got 2 Shadow Creatures' Souls from Elite Zombies, which gave his SSS rank Mirror World skill 2,000 experience points, confirming he could level it up. After the battle, Yunche collected items, pleased with the levels and Mirror World experience. Suddenly, sensing danger, he moved higher and saw Ding family guards patrolling more often. Below, Chiao, level 8, with new gear, nervously suggested they stop. He noted fewer monsters and high guard alert, making it too risky, wondering if they were found. Yunche agreed. Fighting now would be too hard, requiring constant guard watching and careful trick blade use. With his current power and increased security, the risk was too high. Yunche looked at a new skill book, Brick Spell, which created mana bricks. When reversed by Mirror World, it became Void Technique, making small objects intangible. He realized not all reversed skills were for combat. Some had subtle non-fighting uses. Yunche checked his Mirror World skill. It needed 30% more experience to level up. Standing on the cliff, he thought about the amazing power its reversal gave him, even at its basic level. He felt more determined, imagining how much stronger he'd become when it leveled up. With glowing eyes, Yunche made a new plan. This dungeon offered unique Mirror World experience from its monsters. He figured killing the boss could level up the skill to level 2, a reward too good to miss despite guard risk. They moved quietly through the cave, hiding behind rocks, as guards used detection skills more often, making their position risky. Yunche cautiously peered ahead and saw their target, a massive, shadowed figure on a throne, bound by thick, glowing purple chains at the top of stairs. Many guards protected it. This was the dungeon boss. From their hiding spot, Chiao was shocked to see a dungeon boss controlled like this. Yunche was less surprised, noting their school's boss was also guarded, suggesting it's common for strong groups. Yunche scanned the scene, seeing relaxed guards on the stairs. He focused on the glowing purple chains binding the boss, realizing they were powerful restraints. He quietly analyzed the situation. With so many guards, a direct attack on the boss would be suicidal and unwinnable, drawing everyone's attention. Yunche knew he couldn't kill the boss with all the guards, but he saw an opportunity. A guard wandered off alone. He decided to take them out one by one. Covering his face, he used Trick Blade, 150% attack boost, and ambushed the guard. The ambush worked perfectly. The guard was instantly crippled and fell as Chiao watched. Yunche stood over him with a dark presence, telling him to talk, to get information. Terrified, the guard begged for his life, offering any information, admitting the Ding family didn't pay him enough to die for them. Yunche listened, seeing this as his chance to ask about his main goal, infiltrating the compound. When Yunche asked about the Hero Dungeon Pass, the guard was shocked. He quickly said the old master had many in his study and they weren't rare. Misunderstanding, the guard thought Yunche was a hero grandpa fanatic. Frightened by Yunche's silence, the guard swore he was truthful, saying he'd seen the old master take passes often. He warned that the passes were temporary samples. Without an insider, they'd be caught. Yunche wasn't bothered. He grabbed the guard's collar, telling him not to worry. With a cold look, he ordered the guard to empty his inventory, showing his plan to steal from him and likely take his identity. Back at the Ding family compound, Yunche kept questioning the guard, holding him by his shirt. Yunche was disappointed by a single mediocre skill book. The terrified guard swore it was all he had, explaining the Ding family kept all valuable dungeon drops in their inner residence, leaving outer guards scraps. Yunche learned Sunlight Baptism, a passive skill giving temporary defense after healing. He used Mirror World to reverse it into Moonlight Blessing, a strong offensive skill granting temporary attack boosts after healing. He noted this skill, like the dungeon passes, was in the inner residence. The guard pointed to the lavish Ding inner residence, explaining outer guards like him couldn't enter without a direct summons. He said security was extreme. Except for Ding Shu, everyone inside was over level 50 with top gear, making outer guards unneeded. Yunche held the guard closer, asking if the pass was in the residence. The terrified guard confirmed it, adding the powerful family head, level 42, was also there, a foe Yunche couldn't beat. He detailed the family's strength, current and second family heads, level 42. Third family head, level 52, and old master, level 57. He warned that if the two strongest members returned, it would be impossible. After getting all the info, Yunche knocked the guard out. He had Chiao wear the guard's armor as a disguise and wait for his signal. Since the powerful family head was safe inside, Yunche planned to lure him out instead of confronting him directly. Back in the dungeon, Yunche observed the boss. He understood the Ding family used high-level chains to keep the boss alive, creating a permanent private farming spot. He realized this system's security, relying on easily guarded chains, could be exploited. This was a big flaw. Guards thought their method was safe because no one would unlock the chains, but they didn't know Yunche, who, from his past life, knew how to unlock them. He quietly approached a guard and easily undid the lock. The chains fell, and the enraged boss broke free, going wild. Guards panicked as the huge monster rampaged. This chaos was exactly what Yunche needed to lure the family head out of the inner residence, using the perfect method to do so. The plan worked. Alarms blared as the level 42 family head rushed from the unguarded inner residence, ordering immediate dungeon reinforcement. As he and his guards charged to handle the crisis, Yunche used the distraction to grab the powerful level 60 combat chains that bound the boss. Holding the pulsing high-level gear, Yunche knew his plan succeeded. With the family head and elite guards busy, he and Chiao could easily enter the inner residence. As Yunche's plan opened the way, new people arrived at the main entrance of the Ding family home. Servants greeted the returning second master, Ding Hao, level 42, and his son Ding Shu, who drove up in a fancy car. Ding Hao brushed off Ding Shu's recent loss to Yunche as a small mistake, but Ding Shu shot back that greeting his father wasn't why he was there. Ding Hao then opened the car door for a Miss Yun Sha. Two young women stepped out, one with long blonde hair, and her dark-haired friend, likely Yun Sha. The mustached family head, back from the dungeon mess, waited at the top of the stairs, smiling. Suddenly, his smile vanished, replaced by confusion, then anger. He roughly kicked a bowing servant out of his way, telling him not to block him. As the servant lay on the ground, the angry family head walked quickly towards Ding Hao, Ding Shu, and their two female guests, clearly upset. From the woods, Chiao, dressed as a guard, watched the scene at the house. Yunche suddenly appeared behind him, surprising the boy. Chiao said he was worried, noting that with the Ding family back, it wasn't a good time to sneak into the house. Yunche calmly asked why he looked worried, and a surprised Chiao asked how he got there so fast. Yunche explained that the creature he let loose was a dungeon lord. Even a level 31 was hard to catch alive, meaning it would keep the Ding family's main fighters busy for a long time. He said they wouldn't defeat the boss anytime soon, making it the perfect chance for them. With that settled, he asked Chiao what he had seen. Chiao looked back at the house sadly. He said the servant the family head had kicked was his youngest uncle, Chiao Li, a level 17 man. Yunche listened as Chiao told a dark part of their shared past. He said that when the old Yunche rebelled, his family had already been killed. Chaoji added that, in a way, this saved them from the years of shame and pain that followed for the children of traitors, like his own family. Hearing about the pain Yun Che's old friend's family had suffered because of lies about their past, Yun Che's face showed grim sadness and strong will. As they watched from the trees, Chaoji continued his family's sad story. He explained that after being called traitors, the Chiao family faced constant meanness from the empire. Their homes were destroyed and their lives were ruined. It got worse under secret orders from the so-called hero Ding Kun, who made sure the surviving Chiao members were picked on and hurt constantly. Beaten and broken, with no other choice to survive, the remaining Chiao family members were forced to work for the very people who helped ruin them, the Ding family. Now, they live a poor life, always watching their masters' faces, bowing and scraping for scraps. Chaoji admitted with shame that they are sometimes shown off as proof of the Ding family's power and kindness for forgiving the children of a traitor. He said his father's generation tried to fight back and change their fate, speaking out against the unfairness, but their effort ended badly. The stress broke his father, who went crazy, while his uncle, Chao Li, became completely obedient, acting like nothing more than the Ding family's dog. Heavy with this hopeless history, Chaoji began to doubt his own actions, wondering if it was right to follow Yun Che into such a dangerous place. His doubt was cut short when Yun Che turned to him and said firmly that he needed to go to the inner residence. Panicked, Chaoji tried to stop him, quickly reminding him that Ding Shu's father, a fully equipped level 42 fighter, was inside. He warned Yun Che that if he was found, he would surely die. Yun Che wasn't scared by the danger. He explained his belief that in this time, where powerful people control who can use power and dungeons, one can't hope to change their life without taking chances. He looked at Chaoji, adding that some things will never get done if one worries and waits too much. Finally, Yun Che gave him a clear choice. He told Chaoji he could help him change his fate, but Chaoji had to decide to act first. Yun Che made his own plans clear. He would fight back, but he wouldn't make Chaoji follow him. Even with Yun Che's strong will, Chaoji was still very scared and doubtful. He argued that the Ding family was a huge power that ruled the world, asking how the two of them could possibly fight such a big force. Yun Che turned away from him, looking at the distant inner residence as he started walking forward. He told the stunned Chaoji that his goal was much bigger than just taking down one family. The real enemy he planned to fight, he said, was the entire empire itself. Meanwhile, inside the quiet inner residence, Ding Hao relaxed on a couch, served by a maid. He wondered how the dungeon lord had broken free from its strong chains. Seeing him, the blonde girl with Ding Shu politely asked her uncle if it was a bad time, offering to visit another day because of the emergency. Ding Hao quickly waved away her worries, saying his older brother, the family head, could handle it. He promised her that a simple dungeon problem was far less important than her visit. He continued, smiling, explaining that when his powerful father, the old master, and his third brother heard she was coming, they had already started heading back to the house to meet her. Also, he said they had already contacted Hero Grandpa, who was very excited to meet her, making it clear that handling the situation would be very easy. From a hidden spot on a balcony, Yun Che heard everything. His attention sharpened at Hero Grandpa, knowing they meant the so-called hero, Ding Kun. His mind raced, connecting this new info with what he'd learned from the captured guard. To enter the hero's dungeon, one needed both a pass and someone to go with them. He looked at the guests, seeing how respectfully Yun Sha was treated, and realized her status must be very high. Then, an important detail hit him. Her name was Yun Sha, sharing the same last name as his current self. He wondered if this was just a coincidence. For now, he pushed the thought aside. He focused his gaze, deciding to concentrate on his immediate goal, getting the dungeon pass. As he watched, Yun Sha stood silently, her face unreadable, a figure of mystery and importance. With the Ding family's main fighters busy, Yun Che used the chance to sneak into the inner residence. He moved silently through the rich hallways, slipping past two maids talking and using the shadows to hide. He went through the richly decorated halls, moving deeper into the mansion towards his goal. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, the problem was solved. The family head, Ding Yi, level 42, and his forces stood before the now defeated dungeon lord. Ding Yi looked at the situation, deciding the creature had been let loose on purpose. He was bothered, though, because they couldn't find who did it. He figured that taking such a big risk couldn't have been just for one piece of good equipment like the chains. Determined to protect his home, he ordered his guards to surround the inner residence first. His main concern was his important guest. He couldn't let anything scare the young lady. Inside the study, Yun Che started his search. He went to the desk the guard had told him about, but was at first annoyed to find the drawers empty. Remembering his new non-fighting skill, he used phasing, the reverse of brick spell. This let his hand go through the solid wood of the desk, showing a hidden spot inside. He found a drawer full of books and journals. He pulled out the items, his eyes first landing on what looked like a diary. Pushing it aside, he found the real prize, a collection of high-quality, fancy skill books. One was for a strong support skill, slowing aura, which could slow all enemies in a wide area. He had found the family's secret stash. The entrance to the Ding family's inner residence was now full of guards. Hiding in the nearby woods, Chiao watched in terror, wondering why all the guards had come and fearing they had been found. His panic grew as more guards arrived, and he realized the situation was too risky. He worried that if Yunche didn't get out right away, he would be caught. The fear of being caught brought back painful memories of his father going mad and his family's constant suffering. His first thought was to run, to sneak away, and save himself. As another guard came near his hiding spot, he was frozen by not knowing what to do. But at that key moment, Yunche's words came to his mind. He could be helped to change, but he had to make the choice himself first. Having made up his mind, Chiao let out a loud shout, purposely getting the guards' attention. He then burst from his hiding spot and started running, leading them away from the mansion. He had made his choice. He would act as a distraction to make sure Yunche wasn't found. From inside the mansion, Yunche saw Chiao's brave act. With the guards distracted, he broke a window and jumped out. He felt proud, realizing that his friend had finally overcome his fear and chosen to fight against his fate. To help Chiao escape, Yunche created an even bigger distraction. He landed among the guards, taunting them by saying he had stolen the chains and skill books, daring them to come and get them. Angry, the guards immediately left their positions and chased him. As he ran, Yunche used the slowing aura skill he had just stolen. However, thanks to Mirror World, the skill was reversed, becoming accelerating aura, which sped up himself and any friends nearby. The family head, Ding saw them running, but noticed something strange. Instead of running away from the house, they were heading back towards the dungeon. Realizing the danger, he ordered 2 of his squads to stop chasing and go back to protect the dungeon lord. Chiao, now running beside Yunchi, was totally confused. He asked why Yunchi was leading everyone in the wrong direction, back towards danger. Yunchi explained his big plan. He knew that with so many guards drawn out to chase them, the remaining forces must have already defeated the wild dungeon lord. To control the powerful boss, they would have had a huge fight. This meant the Lord's health was now at its very lowest point, making it weak. Yunche checked the status of his ultimate skill, Mirror World, seeing how close it was to getting stronger. With his eyes glowing purple, he knew what he had to do. Killing the weakened dungeon lord now would give him the final push he needed to make his most powerful ability stronger. A tense quiet settled in the Ding family's lavish sitting room. The blonde girl sipping tea politely told Ding Hao, her host, he could attend to the outdoor commotion. Smiling confidently, Ding Hao, the second patriarch, dismissed it as a small thief, assuring his guest, his brother, Ding would handle it easily. But it was far from easy. In the dungeon, Grand Patriarch Ding furiously tried to regain control. He yelled at a guard for being slow and ordered him to go directly after the rampaging overlord. Seeing Yunche zip past, Ding commanded his fastest units, rogues and archers, to abandon the boss and pursue the intruder at all costs. Their efforts failed. Yunche moved with incredible speed, leaving them behind. He knew his advantage. He'd put half his attribute points into agility. Combined with his reversed acceleration skills, he was so fast that only specialized level 30 rogues or archers stood any chance of keeping up. He easily reached the main chamber where the skeletal overlord was surrounded. The beast was heavily wounded and crippled, with guards struggling to cast a sealing spell. Yunche saw his plan worked perfectly. The boss was now at its weakest. With a surge of purple energy, he prepared to deliver one decisive blow to finish the weakened dungeon lord. As Yunche neared, guards around the overlord spotted him. They shouted in alarm, scrambling to block his path. Before they could defend properly, Yunche unleashed chaotic thorns. Purple, thorny vines erupted from the ground, lashing out at them. The guards were bewildered, having never seen this skill. The thorns tried to inflict a status ailment. Humans usually resist such effects, but Yunche's skill was unnaturally potent, and several guards failed to resist it. The horrifying result: afflicted guards got confusion. One mage blasted a fellow guard with a powerful spell, throwing their ranks into chaos. The other guards watched in shock, stunned by the skill's impossibly high success rate. With enemies fighting each other, Yunche seized his chance. He blurred easily through the disorganized guards. His path was clear to his prize, the low HP overlord, ripe for the taking. The guards' defense crumbled as Yunche slipped through. They panicked, yelling why their shields and crowd control failed, accidentally hitting allies. Yunche noted their poor coordination, recognizing them as a motley crew with no real team battle experience. He mused that long peace had made them soft, leading to their downfall. A guard captain tried to rally his men, insisting that if they could pin down the intruder, he'd be dead. Just then, First Patriarch Ding arrived, commanding his men to hold Yunche. The level 42 warrior, in fiery gear, declared he'd deal with the intruder personally. With his blazing weapon, he leaped, preparing a devastating attack on Yunche. Yunchi watched the Patriarch's approach, readying himself. With a dismissive sound, he decided to face the attack head-on. He pulled out the level 60 combat chains he'd stolen. Though too low-level to fully equip, he knew their immense durability remained. As Ding Yi's fiery attack descended, Yunche used the chains as a makeshift shield, successfully blocking the powerful blast's full force. Yunche cleverly turned Ding Yi's powerful attack to his advantage. Instead of just blocking the fiery blast, he used its immense impact to propel himself backwards like a cannonball, shattering the magical seal guards tried to maintain around their boss. He landed perfectly before the crippled dungeon lord. With a final taunt, he cheekily thanked the enraged patriarch for the ride. Before guards reacted, Yunche declared he'd steal the overlord's experience. He unleashed a powerful finishing blow, striking the weakened beast and ending its life. The payoff was immediate and huge. Yunche gained a staggering 3 levels instantly, jumping to level 20 and receiving 9 new attribute points. Most importantly, the Dungeon Lord's massive experience maxed out his hidden skill, Mirror World. A system notification confirmed the skill was upgraded, finally reaching the coveted level 2. Seething with rage after his kill was stolen, First Patriarch Ding Yi screamed in fury and charged Yunche with his fiery axe. Following his lead, the remaining guards rushed forward, determined to capture the audacious intruder who stood calmly before the massive Dungeon Lord corpse. But Yunche was unafraid. He focused on his spoils, the new power his ultimate skill gained at level 2. As Ding Yi's powerful attack was about to connect, it passed harmlessly through a shimmering image of Yunche, who then vanished. The guards stopped, confused by his sudden disappearance. Yunche found himself in a completely new place. The world had transformed into a silent, crystal, blue-green version of the dungeon. He activated a new ability of his hidden skill, Mirror World. In this strange dimension, he saw ghostly, clear versions of Ding Yi and other guards, unaware of his presence. A timer showed his mirror walk would last almost 30 minutes. He realized with excitement that he could now enter the very world inside the mirror. Inside the strange blue-green world, Yunche started to use his new power. He saw that everything was a perfect mirror image of the real world, flipped left to right. At first, he thought the ghostly shapes of the guards were just tricks, as his hand went right through one. But when he touched the crystal-like ground, he found it was solid, realizing this place was more than just a trick. His exploration led to an amazing find. He picked up a solid crystal piece from the ground, and a message told him he had a mirror shard that, importantly, could be taken out of this world and into the real one. This was a big deal for Yunche. He understood that with his Mirror World skill, now at level 2, he could bring real objects from this other world into his own. Wondering what else had changed with the skill's upgrade, he checked his system screen. He saw a completely different list of skills, showing many powerful reversed abilities like invisibility and force field cage, but most of them were marked not activated, which confused him. A message quickly explained that these skills were for base skills, not yet learned. He then understood the full power of his new ability. The list showed the reversed forms of all skills he could learn. He now knew that to use any of these strong abilities, he first needed to find and learn their normal versions in reality. The skill reversal he used at level 1 was just a simple, basic part of his ability's true power. As he looked through the exciting list of future powers, he realized this changed everything. He could now pick strong skill pairs and plan his whole class path ahead of time, knowing exactly what powerful reversed forms he would get. As Yunche was thinking about his new skill's full potential, he suddenly felt something behind him. Turning, he saw a faint, blue-green human shape floating aimlessly in the crystal air. He wondered if it was a soul, like how he was stuck before he came back to life. The idea interested him, and he asked if other souls were also in this strange world. Without warning, the calm soul flashed with green energy, turning into a screaming, bone-like undead creature that lunged at him. Surprised, Yunche pulled out his glowing blade and got ready to fight. He met the creature's attack, and with one swing, easily smashed the undead being, noting it didn't seem very strong. Just as he finished the creature, a new message popped up, getting his attention. The system offered him an undead contract. It explained he could make a deal with the soul he had just beaten, letting it leave the mirror world and fight for him in the real world. The contract also said the soul's highest level would always be the same as his, and he could have 20 such contracts. This unexpected event made Yunche think about what this new power could do. Yuncha thought about what his new power meant. He now understood that after beating an undead creature in the mirror world, he could make a deal with its soul and bring it out into reality as a powerful fighter. Holding the mirror shard he had made real, he knew his ability wasn't just for things like stones. The level 2 upgrade to mirror world was a real game changer, letting him bring not only items, but also an army of undead from the mirror world into the real one. Looking at the huge crystal landscape full of possibilities, he found the idea interesting. Back in the real world, things were messy. With its lord defeated, the private dungeon had vanished, leaving a stunned and confused army of guards. They couldn't understand where the intruder had gone. One captain frantically asked how he just vanished, wondering if it was a high-level rogue stealth skill. A rogue expert quickly said no, explaining their stealth had clear limits and couldn't make someone disappear so perfectly. The lack of answers made another captain angry, and he grabbed the rogue, demanding to know how the intruder could have escaped with so many of them there. The first patriarch, Ding was even angrier. Having lost his valuable private dungeon, he took his anger out on one of his men, grabbing the man's face and yelling that if they couldn't find the person responsible, they would have to pay him back for the loss. Meanwhile, Yuncha's time in the mirror world was ending. As his mirror walk timer counted down, he wondered where he would show up again. Would he go back to his first spot, or were there other rules for leaving the mirror world? He got his answer a moment later when he appeared back in the real world, in the exact same spot where he had vanished. The angry Ding spotted him right away, and without thinking, roared for his men to get him. Facing the new attack from the Ding family's fighters, Yunche stayed perfectly calm. He held up a hand, a swirling green light glowing in it, as he told them not to be so fast. He said that after being ganged up on for so long, it was time for him to do the same. With that, he used the power he had just gained from the mirror world. A flood of spooky skeletal warriors burst out, forming a scary undead army that rushed towards the shocked guards. The guards reacted with pure terror, their attacks slowing as they questioned what these ghost-like figures were, wondering if they were actual ghosts. The first patriarch, Ding tried to calm the growing fear. He yelled at his men not to panic and said the creatures were just undead monsters he had seen many times before. One of the guards fought a skeletal warrior, getting ready for a tough fight. However, he was surprised to see a health bar appear above the creature. It was an undead skeleton warrior, and it was only level 20, the same as Yunche. Despite this, the fear was strong. Dingy's face twisted with rage at his men's continued hesitation. To get them to fight, he promised a bonus to everyone if they attacked and caught the intruder. The idea of a reward seemed to make them brave again. But as the guards turned their attention from the undead army back to Yunche, they found he was no longer there. Confused, they looked around, wondering where he could have possibly gone. Having used his newly summoned undead as a distraction, Yunche watched the fight from a safe distance. He judged that his current army was still too weak to be truly effective. He knew that if he could find and make deals with stronger souls, the disorganized guards would have been no match for him. However, he was limited by what he could find. He had already made deals with the 20 strongest souls available in the small area he had explored within the mirror world. Also, he found that his exploration of the mirror world wasn't endless. He had hit a wall that kept him within 200 meters of where he entered. This made him realize that to find better undead, he would need to enter the mirror world from different places in the future. His planning was cut short when he saw that his friend, Chiao, who had been acting as a distraction, had been found hiding in the woods. One of the guards sneered at the disguised boy, teasing him about the reward he would get for catching him. Without hesitation, Yunche leaped from the shadows, quickly and precisely striking down the guards threatening his friend. With their path clear, he grabbed the stunned Chiao and told him they were leaving. Looking at the mess he had created, with his undead army keeping the rest of the guards busy, Yunche decided their job was done. It was time to go back, get away from the danger, and properly check all the new things he had gained from his bold raid. As Yunche and Chiao escaped, the remaining Ding family guards fought the undead army. The guards fiercely attacked the skeletal warriors, breaking their bones. A guard leader noted the creatures weren't very strong, but their relief was short-lived. To their horror, a defeated skeleton would instantly reform, unharmed. They kept fighting, only for skeletons to revive endlessly. Just as the guards' spirits were breaking, Ding, the strong level 52 third head of the Ding family, appeared, calmly smoking. He realized the skeletons were summoned creatures and that reviving them used their summoner's magic. With a confident smile, he concluded they just needed to kill them until their master ran out of energy. Sometime after the chaotic attack, the old master, the powerful head of the family with a long white beard, returned. He immediately asked if their important guest, Miss Yun Sha, had left. Inside, his son, Ding Hao, bowed respectfully, apologizing for failing to keep her there. He explained the intruder was unbelievably bold, causing a commotion by shouting and even breaking a window, which scared their guest away. The old master, the formidable level 57 Ding Dan, son of hero Ding Kun, was furious. He yelled at his son for the complete security failure, enraged that an intruder got in and escaped without being identified. Ding Hao bowed his head in shame, taking full blame. However, Ding Hao offered good news. Despite the chaos, Miss Yunsha agreed to go to the hero's dungeon, meaning his grandfather, hero Ding Kun's matter was not ruined. This didn't calm the angry patriarch. Ding Dan swore they'd kill the culprits without mercy. He then impatiently ordered his son to quickly check what else was stolen. Safely away from the chaos, Yunche reviewed his gains. He looked at the temporary dungeon access permit he stole, which had Chaoji's name. He had the pass, his main goal, but still needed an escort for the hero's dungeon. He decided not to rush this problem. He assessed his other gains from the Ding family house raid. It was very profitable, raising his level to 20. His powerful Chimera Bone Ring was almost destroyed from blocking an attack, but he'd stolen over 10 valuable skill books. He saw one book had chant skills, all support types. He learned Battle Song Chant, which boosted critical hit rate and damage but lowered defense. He immediately considered its reversed form, Shield Song Chant, which would do the opposite. He excitedly realized by learning and reversing these support skills, he could greatly boost his stats. With these boosts and a new passive skill that increased his strength, he knew he could crush any same-level opponent with pure stats. Besides skill books, the Dungeon Lord dropped a rare level 30 item, Corrupted Knight's Armor, which would be useful later. But most importantly, above all the levels, skills, and equipment, he had finally leveled up his hidden skill, Mirror World, to level 2. Thinking about his new abilities, Yunche admitted his necromantic summons greatly increased his combat power. But he knew it wasn't enough. Recalling the hero Ding Kun's statue, he judged his enemy was at least an S-rank berserker. To have any chance of killing him, Yunche figured he'd need to reach level 50 or higher and, more importantly, find and contract an S-rank necromantic spirit. Later, safe from the Ding compound, a still-shaken Chaoji nervously asked Yunche if they wouldn't be followed. Yunche calmly said they'd lost their pursuers and were safe since their faces weren't seen. Still, Chaoji was uneasy, and Yunche noted how hard the experience must have been for him. Seeing his current undead army was too weak, Yunche decided his next step. He asked Chaoji if there were any nearby dungeons where a powerful person had died. When Chaoji looked confused, Yunche explained he needed a higher-level dungeon to level up faster, adding the powerful person was for something he'd find out later. After a moment, Chaoji confirmed there was such a place. However, he hesitated, worried. He revealed it was the school's private dungeon, and they couldn't sneak in. The information made Yunche pause, thinking about a controlled, heavily guarded dungeon. But he didn't waver. He simply decided if normal entry was impossible, he'd use special methods to get what he wanted. As part of his special methods to enter the school's private dungeon, Yunche met his class teacher. He gave the teacher a valuable, rare purple-quality skill book for his Wanderer class, stolen from the Ding family. The bribe worked. The teacher, now believing Yunche had powerful backing, became more helpful. He admitted dungeon access was usually fixed, and he couldn't easily change things. However, he explained a loophole. The dungeon was open for graduating students. While Yunche wasn't normally qualified, a teacher could recommend an outstanding student. Convinced of Yunche's outstanding potential, he promised to get him a spot. The plan succeeded. Yunche joined students entering the school's Valiant Dungeon. Other students were determined or flattering. One grimly noted it might be his last chance to level up, while another thanked the hero. As Yunche walked past the glowing portal, he felt a strange unease, sensing something was wrong with this dungeon. The teacher enthusiastically explained it was where the hero once fought, and traces of his power might remain inside. Nearby, Chaoji listened grimly. He horrifyingly realized the Valiant Dungeon was where, according to the Empire's fake history, hero Ding Kun valiantly killed his great-grandfather, traitor Chiao En. Knowing the dark truth, Chaoji hesitated. He struggled, wondering if he should tell Yunche what he knew about the dungeon's true history. As students gathered at the dungeon entrance, the teacher gave a final warning. It was a high-level dungeon, and they must be careful within their limits. He then singled out a red-haired student in armor, Little Z, telling him to look after Yunche and Chaoji. Little Z was clearly annoyed, complaining he couldn't focus on leveling up if he had to babysit. Another student pushed him forward, telling him to stop complaining as the dungeon was open. Grumbling about why younger students were allowed, Little Z entered the dungeon with the others. He condescendingly ordered Yunche and Xiaozhi to stay back and not cause trouble, threatening to abandon them if they were a burden. As the group went into the vast, purple-lit interior, Yunche silently assessed his surroundings. He noted it was supposed to be a level 2040 dungeon. However, his instincts from his past life screamed something was wrong. A deep unease washed over him as he felt a profound danger that didn't fit a dungeon of this supposed difficulty. As students went deeper into the glowing purple Valiant dungeon, Yunche saw Yun Yin and her blonde friend, Yun Sha, inside. He wondered how they, as younger students, were allowed. Little Z, assigned to watch Yunche, also saw the girls and pointed them out to another armored student. This student immediately dreamed of escorting the attractive girls. His fantasy was cut short by a taller, serious student in a helmet who smacked him, telling him to stop dreaming. This student revealed Yun Yin and Yun Sha were much stronger, both over level 30. He scoffed that they should be asking the girls for help, and the daydreaming student wasn't good enough for them. Embarrassed, the student muttered he was just talking. As the older students talked, the daydreaming boy watched Yun Sha and Yun Yin. To his and his friend's surprise, the two high-level younger students ignored them and walked directly towards Yun Che and Xiaozhi. Yun Che watched them approach, confused. He recognized Yun Sha as the high-status guest from the Ding family's house. Her direct approach made him suspicious. He wondered if she knew the original owner of his body, or if she was confronting him for Ding Shu, whom he'd publicly embarrassed. Yun Sha's approach was direct and friendly. Smiling confidently, she told Yun Che she saw him at the memorial hall and complimented his fighting skills, adding his voice was unique. Yun Che wasn't sure what she wanted, thinking she was just making small talk. However, Yun Sha's eyes glowed gold as she leaned closer, revealing she recognized his voice from the shattering glass during his escape from the Ding family residence. This stunned Yun Che. He realized, alarmed, that this powerful girl had identified him as the intruder just from 2 sentences he shouted. Having made her point, Yun Sha's clothes changed to white, mage-like combat gear. Yun Yin did the same, putting on a dark, green energy outfit. Yun Sha then told a still surprised Yun Che they'd explore the dungeon first, then walked away with her friend. As they walked off, Yun Che processed the encounter carefully. He understood she recognized him as the intruder, but chose not to expose him publicly, subtly delivering the message. This made him wonder if it was a warning. He considered the dangerous possibility that Ding Shu also recognized his voice from their earlier fight. However, Yun Che decided not to worry for now. He was confident that as long as the Ding family didn't act immediately, his fast leveling speed would soon make him strong enough for any threat they posed. Seeing her act as friendly, he decided to offer a warning back. He called out, advising them to be careful, as his instincts told him the dungeon felt strangely dangerous. Yun Sha stopped and seemed to agree, telling her friend the place felt odd. She reflected that given her high level, the dungeon shouldn't feel so unsettling. With a final knowing smile at Yun Che, she thanked him for the warning before she and Yun Yin continued. The brief friendly talk between Yun Che and the high-level girls didn't go unnoticed. The other older students watched in disbelief, gossiping about why the usually cold Yun Sha was so familiar with him. Driven by jealousy, they surrounded Yun Che, asking about his relationship with her and demanding an introduction. Not interested, Yun Che cut off their questions, announcing he and Xiaozhi were leaving the group to explore alone. The older students were shocked by his overconfidence, warning him that as younger students, the level 20 monsters would surely kill them. To their surprise, their supervisor, Little Z, told them to let the two go. He reasoned that for Yun Che to be friendly with someone as powerful as Yun Yin, his own level must be high. When others protested, reminding him of their teacher's orders, Little Zai's true motive was revealed in his thoughts. He aggressively reminded his friends of their real reason, to find precious crystals. He didn't want to share the loot, so letting them wander off was perfect. He finalized his decision by callously telling the group to ignore them, reasoning they had distress signal guns if needed. As Yun Che and Xiaozhi walked away, he watched them with anger and jealousy. He couldn't understand why a plain kid got Yun Sha's attention. His envy grew into dark malice. He concluded if Yun Che was so overconfident, he deserved to die. Sometime after Yun Che and others entered the dungeon, an angry Ding Shu arrived at the entrance. A male staff member and a woman asked him what he was doing. Filled with rage, Ding Shu grabbed the man's shirt, asking if a team had just gone inside. The staff member demanded to know what he planned to do. This fight came after a frustrating meeting Ding Shu had with his family elders. When he tried to tell them Yun Che and Xiaozhi were the intruders who raided their home, his father, Ding Hao, dismissed him. He coldly told him not to blame them for his public humiliation, as he had no time for such small matters. Ding Shu strongly insisted he recognized their voices from the raid. However, Ding Gai was doubtful, pointing out the intruders were too skilled to be mere students, easily escaping many guards. Ding Gai said unless Ding Shu could prove their strength was greater than the guards, he couldn't support his claim. The family head, Ding Dan, coldly told him to leave them to their important matters. Dismissed by his family, Ding Shu had no choice but to act himself. Back at the dungeon entrance, he again confronted the staff member, declaring with crazy determination that since Yunche and Chaoji were inside, he had to go after them. Inside the dungeon, Yunche was fighting a tough level 20 greed demon crystal giant. The creature, made of sharp blue crystals, attacked fiercely. As Yunche dodged its hits, an even stronger enemy appeared, a level 30 greed demon crystal eye. It shot a powerful beam of purple energy right at him. Seeing the new monster's immense power, Yunche got ready for the hit. From far away, a terrified Chaoji shouted Yunche's name and used a support skill. A set of golden shields with angel wings appeared around Yunche, protecting him from the attack. The skill, called Surrounding Shield, gave Yunche a shield with 500 durability and 700 defense for 3 minutes. Chaoji didn't stop there. He used a motivational shout, which wrapped Yunche in an aura that boosted his power. This gave Yunche the inspired status, increasing his attack power and speed by 5%. It showed that Chaoji was quickly becoming a very good support player. Strengthened by Chaoji's help, Yunche used a series of powerful attacks on the huge crystal monster. With his Trick Blade skill active, which gave him a 70% attack boost, he shattered the strong level 30 Eye of the Mountain with a final, strong hit. The victory brought quick results. Yunche leveled up to level 21 and got 3 new attribute points. Chaoji was also happy, shouting in surprise as he leveled up to 11 and also got 3 attribute points. Yunche explained to his friend that the Surrounding Shield and Motivational Shout skills came from the books they had stolen from the Ding family. He said they were very useful skills that Chaoji was able to learn. As he looked at the defeated monster's remains, Yunche thought about how much better their teamwork had gotten. He knew the monsters in this dungeon were a bit high level, but Chaoji's new support skills made the fights much easier to handle. As they went deeper into the dungeon's crystal caves, Yunche remembered something his teacher had said. The teacher had mentioned a rare monster in this dungeon called the Obsidian Beast. He had said that killing it gave a chance to get a rare support skill book for gravitational pull. This was a big chance for Yunche because he had already seen the skill's reversed form, Force Field Zone, on his Mirror World skill list and knew it was a key skill for his future plans. But hunting the beast wasn't his only goal. He looked out at the huge, spooky landscape, knowing that this dungeon was also said to be where many powerful adventurers had died. He believed their souls might still be where they fell, giving him a chance to find and contract powerful undead spirits for his army. He hoped he could find some of these souls in the area. Suddenly he felt danger and his eyes widened in alarm. In the canyon below, a huge creature made of dark, glowing purple rock appeared. It was not alone. A whole group of these elite-level obsidian beasts was on the move, marching together through the Crystal Pillar Canyon. From a high cliff, Yunche and Chaoji watched the strange sight. Yunche saw that the elite beasts were moving in a large group and had also traveled at least a kilometer, much farther than they normally would. This very unusual organized behavior led him to a serious conclusion as he mumbled the words, "Wanderer type, huh?" He recognized the signs of a much bigger and smarter threat. The way the obsidian beasts were acting reminded Yunche of something, and he explained what a wanderer type monster is. These are rare creatures that don't have a fixed spawn location and wander freely all over a dungeon map. They are much stronger than normal monsters of the same level and can easily beat unprepared adventurers. Back in the early days, before people grew strong and learned to control dungeons, running into a wanderer type often meant a very hard fight to survive. These creatures were especially dangerous because they weren't stuck in the dungeon. They could wander outside and threaten human towns, causing a lot of disasters and death. However, Yunche also knew that this huge risk came with an equally huge reward. The experience and items dropped by wanderer-type monsters were much better than any ordinary creatures, making them a high-risk, high-reward target for any adventurer brave enough to face them. Knowing the huge threat from the group of obsidian beasts, Yunche knew he couldn't be careless. He knew that the monsters were simply too strong to attack directly and decided he would need to test their abilities first to find a weakness. His first look showed a strong defense. The level 30 obsidian crystal beasts had a powerful healing skill that was always on, making them very hard to wear down. Before he could think of a new plan, the beasts attacked back, shooting a coordinated blast of powerful energy beams called mana rays. Yunche used his high speed to weave through the thick web of attacks, helped by the winged shields Chaoji had summoned for him. But the monster's attacks were too many and too frequent. One of the beams eventually hit him, drawing blood and sending a shock of pain through his back. He realized that even his high speed wasn't enough to dodge all of them. A quick look at his health bar showed how much danger he was in. His health had dropped a lot. He knew he was weak, that his current body's HP and defense were just too low. He understood that if it weren't for Chaoji's surrounding shield, he would have been badly hurt by that single hit. Knowing he was too weak, Yunche tried a different plan. He summoned his undead army, a group of spooky skeletons in green flame, to hold back the obsidian beasts. But the power difference was too big. The elite monsters tore through his summons, and he could see the health bars of his skeletons dropping quickly. He realized with frustration that even his undead army couldn't hold the line against such strong enemies. He made a smart retreat, noting that at least the powerful monsters were pretty slow, which gave him some time. He knew his own low health and defense were weaknesses that couldn't be fixed quickly. He decided that the only real way to beat these creatures was to rely on Chaoji's defensive skills. To make that possible, however, his friend needed to level up. Yunche turned to Chaoji and explained the new plan. They would go fight regular, weaker monsters first to get stronger. They moved to an area with weaker monsters, where Yunche pointed out a group of enemies he had seen earlier, saying they were perfect for helping Chaoji level up. In group fights, the shield bearer is the main defense. Other classes count on the shield bearer to take damage, letting them attack safely from a distance. Following Yunche's earlier advice to aim for S rank, Chaoji had been carefully putting all his new stat points into his defense. This special build, plus the armor they had stolen from the Ding family guards, was now showing how good it was. Chaoji had built up the main defenses of a real shield bearer, and he could now easily block attacks from level 20 monsters, taking only a little damage. Under Yunche's experienced teaching, Chaoji began to train hard to master his role as a shield bearer. From a distance, Yunche shouted instructions, teaching his friend the basics of a good defensive stance, telling him how to shift his weight, steady his body, and angle his shield to block a coming attack. Putting the lessons to work, Chaoji successfully blocked a powerful hit from a crystal monster. He was happy to see a real result of his better skill. A message showed his shield's durability was going down much slower than before, but he was still inexperienced. As Yunche warned him to watch for follow-up attacks, the monster hit again, catching Chaoji off guard and knocking him to the ground. Before the creature could land a final blow, Yunche jumped in, blocking the attack and saving his friend. He used the moment as another lesson, explaining why it's important to always guess the enemy's next move. He told Chaoji to avoid big, sweeping movements with his shield, which would leave him open, and instead focus on smaller, more efficient blocks that would let him attack back. Patting his friend on the shoulder, he gave one last piece of advice: to stay alert, but keep his body relaxed, only tensing up at the exact moment of impact to save energy and react faster. The training continued without stopping. With a final encouraging pat on Chaoji's armor, Yunche told him to keep up the good work. He stood behind his friend, always giving support and teaching him another key lesson for a shield bearer: to always keep an eye on the teammates behind them. Hearing this, a look of quiet determination appeared on Chaoji's face. They put their training to use, fighting side by side against the dungeon's monsters. Yunche reminded his friend of a main rule of fighting: when stats are close, it is better skill that decides who wins. Their teamwork paid off. After beating another monster, Yunche leveled up once more, reaching level 22. He was happy with their progress. Now that Chaoji could face enemies with confidence, it meant they could fight more efficiently, letting Yunche gain experience at a much faster rate too. The biggest growth, however, was for Chaoji, who excitedly announced that he had finally reached the important level of 15. Reaching this level was a key moment. Chaoji could now learn a new, powerful skill from one of the books they had stolen. He held up the glowing, rare skill book for shield armor, a skill that would add an outer layer of armor to his shield. This would give it huge amounts of durability and defense that grew with his own stats, making him an even stronger tank. With his level high enough, Chaoji learned the shield armor skill, which was the last skill book he could use from the Ding family's collection. The new ability appeared as a layer of glowing green armor over his summoned shield, greatly improving its defensive power. Yunche also noted that the skill's defensive boost would be a huge help when they faced the obsidian beasts again. Meanwhile, in another part of the Crystal Pillar Canyon, a group of 3 men from the school's teaching team were watching the same group of elite obsidian beasts that Yunche and Chaoji had seen earlier. The teachers were confused by the huge number of elite-level wanderer types gathered in one place. They decided that the monsters were far too dangerous for the students and that they needed to be killed. However, they knew how hard the job would be. While they were sure they could handle regular level 30 monsters, the elite level wanderer types were a completely different story, much more powerful and unpredictable. Their discussion was cut short when they saw a student's distress signal flare up in the sky. Forced to change their plans, the teachers decided to stop their hunt and rescue the students first. As they got ready to leave, however, they showed their deep worry about the group of wanderers. They knew the monsters were a major threat, and that any student who stumbled upon them without knowing would be in serious danger. As the teaching team got ready to leave for the rescue, one of them, Pang Zheng, agreed that it was dangerous and offered to stay behind just in case. The team leader, Lei Li, was about to agree when they were interrupted by Yunche and Chiao Zhu suddenly appearing. Yunche shared his own worry, suggesting that he and Chiao Zhu could keep watch on the group of wanderers instead. He reasoned that if the rescue party ran into another group of powerful monsters, 2 teachers alone might not be enough to handle the situation. He walked up to the surprised teachers and calmly explained his idea. He told them that the wanderer types were not very fast, and more importantly, had not noticed their presence yet. He promised them that as long as he and Chiao Zhu kept a safe distance and simply watched, they would be perfectly fine, and urged the teachers to go on ahead without worry. After hesitating for a moment, the teachers agreed to the plan. However, before they left, Lei Li gave Yunche a very serious warning. He stressed that the monsters were extremely dangerous and that Yunche and Chiao Zhu must absolutely not act on their own or try to fight them. He repeated that they must stay hidden because if the powerful creatures spotted them, they would have no chance of escape. As the teachers hurried away, one of them yelled a final, desperate warning for Yunche to hide well, telling him he would have no way to escape if the monsters found him. But Yunche had no plans to hide. As soon as the teachers were gone, he started his own attack on the group of obsidian beasts, confidently saying that it was the monsters who wouldn't be able to escape from him. He put their new plan into action. He summoned his undead army to act as a front line, taking the first wave of Manhwa attacks from the powerful beasts. This time, however, the skeletons were not alone. Chiao Ji, who was now a very strong tank, used both his surround shield and his new shield armor skills. This created a super strong defensive wall to protect the skeletons. The powerful energy beams, which had been a big threat before, now hit the strong shields without doing any damage, barely even scratching the undead warriors they were protecting. With the monster's attention on his unbreakable front line, Yunche moved through the chaos and started his own fierce attack. He landed a series of very strong hits, breaking the crystal bodies of the elite-level monsters with just his fists. He focused his attacks on one radiant crystal monster, watching its health bar get smaller with each hit. With a final, sharp blow, he broke the creature's core, and the strong level 30 beast fell down, defeated. It dropped a beam of light, which meant there was valuable loot. After successfully beating one of the powerful wanderer-type monsters, Yunche felt good. He noticed that he was getting more and more used to his new support class, skillfully using his own attacks with Chaoji's defenses and his undead army. However, he knew his current power level was still much weaker than what he had in his past life. While his reversed skills let him increase his attack power a lot, he was still held back by the naturally low base attack of a support class. He wished he had a way to increase his basic damage even more. He thought about his other gains from the battle, like the titles he had earned for beating powerful monsters. The victory had also given him another level up, and he was happy to see just how much experience the rare elite-level monsters gave. As he walked up to the monster's body to pick up the dropped items, a message confirmed he had successfully gotten the valuable rewards. As Yunche looked at the loot from the defeated monster, his eyes widened in surprise. He had gotten a powerful weapon with high attack, a huge glowing pink crystal longsword that gave him a massive plus 552 bonus to his attack power. A slow smile appeared on his face as he realized this was the perfect answer to his problem. This one weapon would be more than enough to make up for his class's naturally low base attack power. He equipped the sword, and it changed in his hands, becoming a larger, more threatening blade that crackled with dark purple energy. With this new power, he was sure that future fights would be much easier. However, his luck wasn't perfect. He looked at the other item that dropped, a skill book, but was disappointed to see it wasn't the specific gravitational pull skill he had been hoping to find. He guessed that the chance of that particular skill dropping must not be very high. As he stood on the cliff edge, wishing for better luck and a chance to hunt more of the high-reward wanderer monsters, his thoughts were cut short. A bright red, firework-like explosion suddenly lit up the sky in the distance, and it immediately caught his attention. Yunche right away recognized the flare in the sky. It wasn't just any distress signal. It was the special kind of flare that only the school's teacher teams had, which meant they were in serious trouble. The teachers, who had gone to what they thought was a student's distress call, found themselves in a very bad situation. They had stumbled upon a huge group of the elite wanderer-type monsters, all gathered around a single cave entrance. They couldn't understand why so many of the powerful creatures were all there. Soon after, Yunche, Chaozhi, Yunsha, and Yunyin also arrived. They were just as confused by the huge number of monsters gathered in one place. One of the teachers explained that they had just arrived after seeing the signal and didn't know what was happening yet. He pointed towards the cave, explaining that the signal was coming from inside and that the students they had come to rescue must be trapped in there. Another teacher explained their bad situation. They were trying to organize a rescue, but the group of monsters was simply too big. Even with all the teachers together, they didn't have enough people to break through. Seeing the powerful Yunsha and Yunyin arrive, one of the teachers looked to them for help, saying it would be a great help if they could assist in the rescue. Without hesitating, Yunsha accepted the teacher's request, saying that saving fellow students was their duty. She immediately took control of the battle, summoning a glowing, star-shaped magic object and using a powerful area-wide buffing spell called Starlight Mystic Art. The spell washed over the teachers and students, wrapping them in a golden light that greatly increased their spirit and attack power. The pure strength of the buff stunned everyone, who recognized it as an epic-level skill at the very least. With her allies now stronger, Yunsha turned her attention to the monster group, using a powerful attack spell, Gravitational Pressure, that crushed a huge area of the Wanderer beasts. At the same time, Yunyin joined the fight, using her own devastating attack, Hidden Thorn, which instantly destroyed a level 30 radiant crystal spike, showing her own incredible power. The combined strength of their attacks was amazing. The other students and teachers could only watch in awe as the once unbeatable monster group was destroyed. One of the students said that with this level of power on their side, they should be able to rescue the trapped people now, and he praised the amazing strength of Yunyin and Yunsha. Watching the incredible display of power from Yunsha and Yunyin, Yunche was very impressed. He noted that not only was their equipment top level, but their skills were as well. He concluded that with their help, the rescue would succeed without any problems, even if he wasn't there. With the immediate problem handled, Yunche's attention turned to the bigger mystery. As the rescue team moved toward the cave, he wondered what could have possibly attracted so many powerful wanderer-type monsters to gather in this specific spot. Deciding to investigate on his own, he told Chaozhi to stay with the main group while he went ahead to scout. Yunche then used his newly upgraded ability, Mirror Walk, and phased out of reality and into the parallel mirror dimension. He looked at the strange, purple-colored landscape, realizing that the dungeon's crystal structure gave him plenty of reflective surfaces, letting him enter the mirror world at any time. However, he also knew there were limits to this power. He hadn't yet figured out how to leave the dimension whenever he wanted, remembering how he was thrown out when the timer ran out during his raid on the Ding family's house, and he couldn't get back in. As he moved through the mirror version of the cave, passing by the ghostly, untouchable phantoms of the other adventurers, he noticed something strange. The people had phantoms, but the monsters did not. Looking closer, he saw that the bodies of the monsters he had killed before existed physically in this dimension. This led him to a key understanding of his ability's rules. Besides himself, it seemed that other living things did not have a physical form in the mirror world, only their dead bodies. Moving silently and unseen through the mirror world, Yunche followed the ghostly phantoms of the other adventurers into the cave. He quickly recognized them as the group of senior students, including the one called Little Z. He figured that they must have been the ones who attracted the huge group of wanderer monsters, and, finding themselves overwhelmed, had fired the distress signal. From where he was, he could see they were using the narrow space of the cave to hold their ground, which should keep them safe for a short time. However, the main mystery was still there. What could possibly be inside the cave that would attract so many of these powerful creatures? He kept going, moving deeper into the mirror version of the cave to investigate. The confusing crystal landscape made it hard to find his way, with the endless reflections making it difficult to judge things. Suddenly, he froze, his eyes widening in shock and disbelief. He had found something completely unexpected, something that shouldn't be in a place like this at all. As he went deeper into the cave in the mirror world, Yunche's eyes widened. He had found the dungeon's true treasure, a huge vein of special, glowing green crystal ore. Now he understood why Little Z and his group had risked so much to come here. Dungeons often have special resources that don't exist in the real world, which are used to make powerful and unique equipment. The green ores were one such resource, worth far more than gold. As he looked at a green crystal, a message popped up, calling it a mirror image crystal ore. The message confirmed he could loot it and take it out of the mirror world, but more importantly, it asked him, "Return to the real world from here?" This was a huge discovery. To check his idea, he touched a different, normal blue crystal and saw the same message. A slow, smart smile appeared on his face as he realized what his ability could do. He now understood that as long as he could find any mirrored surface, he could use it as his own personal exit to return to the real world whenever he wanted. As he walked among the glowing green crystals, Yun-che picked up a piece of the valuable ore. He thought about his newly upgraded skill, knowing there was still much more to learn about its full power and that he would need to find a good chance to study it. For now, however, he decided to focus on exploring the huge crystal vein he had found. As he went deeper, he was shocked by how much treasure there was. The amount of ore was huge, a massive deposit that would be enough to make any normal person who mined it a billionaire. This amazing sight finally solved the mystery that had been bothering him. He now understood why so many powerful wanderer-type monsters had gathered at the entrance to this cave. They were drawn to, and probably guarding, this incredibly valuable resource. Back in the real world, the rescue was happening. Yunsha kept using powerful spells like gravitational pressure to crush the Wanderer monsters, while Yun Yin followed up with her own deadly dual blade dance that tore through the remaining enemies. Not happy with just helping her allies, Yunsha also showed her own attack power with Star Rain Art, a devastating spell that hit a wide area. The students and teachers watching were completely stunned, wondering if all of the girls' skills were epic level, as their power was much greater than the teachers'. With a final, huge, cross-shaped slash, the last of the Wanderer beasts at the cave entrance was destroyed. The path was now clear for the rescue team to go in and get the trapped senior students, who were huddled together, tired but alive. As the rescue party led them out, one of the seniors, Little Zai, said he was very relieved, saying that he thought he was going to die in the cave. However, the always careful Yun Yin was quick to stop his relief, warning him not to relax. She pointed out that they still had to fight their way out of the dungeon, and that everyone was already tired from the last battle. Yunsha agreed, but added with a confident smile that with their help, the escape should be much easier than their last struggle. As the rescued senior students were being led out of the cave, Yunsha's eyes suddenly widened, a look of surprise and worry on her face as she sensed something was wrong. Her bad feeling was right, as the students behind her let out terrified screams. The reason for their terror was a horrifying sight. The path ahead, which had been cleared just moments before, was once again full of an unbelievably large group of the elite Wanderer-type monsters. It was as if every single Wanderer in the whole dungeon had suddenly gathered in this one spot, completely blocking their path to safety. While the rescue team was being swamped by the sudden return of the Wanderer group in the real world, Yun-che was continuing his solo exploration of the other mirror world. He moved through the confusing, maze-like paths of the crystal cave, his way lit by the strange green glow of the special ore veins. Suddenly, he stopped, his eyes widening in complete disbelief at what was in front of him. He had stumbled upon an amazing sight, a huge, tree-like crystal formation that reached the top of the cave, and at its very top, a brightly glowing, star-shaped crystal core pulsed with immense energy. He immediately knew what it was, the dungeon's legendary secret treasure. As he got closer to the core, he remembered the stories about such items. If the different crystal ores were the dungeon's special products, then this crystal core was the ultimate prize, the dungeon's one and only secret treasure. These treasures are the condensed form of all the special products in a dungeon, taking a very long and unknown amount of time to form. They are so rare that a normal person might never see one in their whole life. Most importantly, every secret treasure, without fail, has a unique and powerful special effect. As Yun-che reached out to touch the glowing object, he knew he had found the true heart of the Valiant Dungeon. With a happy smile, Yun-che reached out to the glowing green crystal core he had found. A system window appeared, naming the item as the Mirror Image Crystal Core. It was a unique quality secret treasure that, when used, would permanently give a plus 110 boost to stamina, a plus 0.5 increase to mana recovery speed, and a 20% reduction in damage from light and electric type attacks. The description also said that it was a copy of the true secret treasure. Yun-che was thrilled with the discovery. He understood that the increase in stamina would greatly boost his maximum health, while the faster mana recovery meant he could use his powerful trick blade skill more often, increasing his damage. With a smart grin, he focused on what he thought was the most important effect, the 20% damage reduction for light and electric types. He knew that percentage-based damage reduction was an incredibly rare and valuable effect, even among the very best equipment. To make it even better, as a consumable secret treasure, it wouldn't even take up one of his valuable equipment slots. However, as he held the treasure, a strange thought came to him. He knew that just as the crystal ores had attracted the Wanderer monsters, a secret treasure this big should logically be protected by a monster whose strength was much greater than the Wanderers he had seen. Deciding not to stay long, he got ready to use the secret treasure and then get out. A system window gave him two choices, to either loot the item for later or use it right away. As he went to choose use, another message appeared, revealing a surprising rule. Using or taking the item would require using up 10 minutes of his remaining mirror walk time, which caught him by surprise. Back in the real world, just as the rescued students were starting to feel a sense of relief, a deep and powerful rumbling sound suddenly shook the whole cave. The teachers and students looked up in terror, and even the very powerful Yunsha and Yunyin were frozen with looks of shock and alarm. From behind the huge crystal formations, a new, huge threat appeared. It was a giant monster, a much larger and more threatening version of the wanderer beasts they had just fought, crackling with dark purple energy and making everything else in the cave look small. The group immediately understood the horrifying truth of their situation. They had stumbled upon the Lord of the Wanderer species, a powerful hidden boss of the dungeon. The teachers and students knew how bad their situation was. They were facing a wandering lord, a rare hidden boss that was separate from the dungeon's main boss. A creature like this is much stronger than a normal boss, and this one, with its huge army of elite followers, was a threat they couldn't hope to fight against. Panic started to spread. One of the students cried out in fear, saying he thought wandering lords only showed up in high-level dungeons. The fear was spreading, and the others began to lose hope, believing they were all going to die. Just as they were about to fall apart, Yunsha's calm, strong voice cut through the chaos. She told everyone to calm down, reminding them that the most important thing was to work together to escape. Taking control, she pointed to a narrow canyon, saying it was their only way out of the basin they were trapped in. She explained a clear plan. As long as they could break through the line of monsters and get out of the basin, their faster speed would let them get away easily. With a final encouraging shout, she used her powerful starlight mystic art again, strengthening the whole group. She ordered everyone not to hold back and to push forward with all their power towards the canyon exit. Inspired by Yunsha's leadership, the teaching team leader, Lei Li, jumped into action. Saying they had to at least get the students out safely, he turned on his light refracting shield. He announced that the teachers would take turns leading the attack, with him going first, and he rushed into the group of monsters to make a path. The other teachers and students followed close behind, their combined attacks creating a powerful push forward. Support class members cast healing and defensive spells on the frontline fighters, making sure they could keep moving. Surrounded on all sides, the group formed a tight defensive circle, slowly but surely pushing their way towards the canyon exit as the teachers urged them to hold on. Just as it seemed they might break through, the huge wandering lord stepped in. It let out a mighty roar, a skill called Battle Cry Rally. In response, the regular crystal monsters from all over the dungeon, which had been inactive before, suddenly started moving and began marching towards the basin. They poured into the canyon, their huge numbers forming what seemed like an endless wave of new enemies that completely surrounded the trapped rescue party. The students and teachers could only watch in despair as their escape route was cut off by thousands of new monsters, wondering where they had all come from. The already bad situation for the students and teachers got even worse. The huge wandering lord used a new ability called Crystal Aura. A massive red aura surrounded all the nearby monsters, strengthening them with a huge 20% increase to their health, attack power, and defense. The students on the front line were immediately beaten, crying out in shock at how much the monster's attack power had suddenly increased. The stronger group quickly got its first victim. A teacher was pierced by several energy beams, screaming that the damage was too high to be healed before he was completely beaten by the attacks and killed. A nearby student shouted in horror, announcing that a teacher was dead. As panic threatened to break them apart, Yunsha took control once more. She ordered the shield guards to the front to form a defensive line and told the priests to focus their healing on the shield bearers to keep them standing. Even with her strong commands, Yunsha knew their situation was very bad. She thought that everyone was already tired and they were now just barely holding on. Most terrifying of all, she realized that the wandering lord itself had not yet really started to fight, and they were already being pushed to their limit by its strengthened followers alone. Even with their best efforts, the combined forces of the students and teachers were no match for the strengthened, endless group of monsters. One of the teachers, his face serious, said that their efforts were useless and that they couldn't possibly break through at this rate. Seeing that a group defense was pointless, one of the more cowardly teachers decided to leave the group. He turned on a stealth skill, saying that it was every man for himself now. He tried to run, attempting to sneak past the monsters and escape on his own. The teacher, Lei Li, shouted after him, warning him that his stealth skill wouldn't last long enough for him to get away. His warning turned out to be tragically true. The running teacher was immediately spotted by a smaller, turtle-like crystal monster that came out of the ground, blocking his path. As the teacher froze in terror, the huge wandering lord, which had been watching the battle until now, finally made its move. It shot a devastating beam of pure energy that hit the ground where the lone teacher stood. The teacher was instantly destroyed, blasted directly into ashes by the overwhelming power of the lord's attack. The blast was so powerful that it not only killed the teacher, but also brought down the entire canyon, completely sealing the only escape route with a massive rock slide. The remaining students and teachers could only stare in horror at the unbelievable, terrifying display of power. One of them, his face a mask of despair, stuttered that they could no longer escape. Having sealed their only escape route, the huge wandering lord turned its attention to the trapped adventurers, its crystal eyes glowing as it charged another devastating energy beam. One of the students screamed in complete despair, believing it was over and that they were the next target. With no way to dodge the attack, the group prepared for the unavoidable, knowing they couldn't possibly block a blast that big. But at the last second, one of the students summoned a massive, fancy, giant shield that appeared in front of them. The shield, an epic quality, level 70 piece of equipment called the Rock Mountain Shield, had a huge amount of defense and resistance. The Lord's energy beam slammed into the giant shield with incredible force, pushing it back and threatening to break it. The teachers and stronger students rushed forward to hold the shield, knowing that if it fell, they would all be finished. Yunsha, her face strained with effort, explained their desperate plan. The shield was a level 70 piece of equipment, so its durability was sure to be high. However, because its level requirement was so high, no one in the group was actually strong enough to properly equip it and get its stat bonuses. This meant they had to physically hold the massive, hard-to-move object in place with their own strength. She knew this was only a temporary solution, a desperate move that could only buy them a little bit of time. As the students and teachers desperately held the line against the Wandering Lord's attack, their spirits began to break. One of the rescued seniors questioned why a monster of this power was even in the school's dungeon. Another student, his face a mask of terror and anger, turned on the teachers, blaming them for their situation and questioning why they had been brought there in the first place. One of the teachers, his face serious, wondered if their long struggle to save the trapped students had all been for nothing. The teacher, Lei Li, looked on with a pained expression, his only comfort being that at least the two younger students, Yunche and Chiao Zhi, were safe and wouldn't run into this danger. His thought was immediately proven wrong. To his complete shock, Chiao Zhi suddenly appeared at his side, pushing him out of the way of an incoming attack. Lei Li couldn't understand how the boy, who was supposed to be waiting by the valley, had gotten there so quickly. As another monster attacked, Lei Li shouted a warning. Chiao Zhi reacted instantly, shouting the name of his skill, "Surround Shield," to protect the teacher. However, the monster's attack was too powerful, shattering Chiao Zhi's defenses and breaking the group's perimeter. With their formation broken and their main tank hurt, the group was left completely open. There was no one left who could stop the advance of the Wanderer group. With their defensive line shattered, the group was left completely open, with no one left to stop the advance of the Wanderer monsters. In a desperate act of bravery, Chiao Zhi single-handedly charged the monsters, successfully blocking several powerful attacks and protecting the injured teacher, Lei Li. The teacher could only stare in amazement, wondering how the younger student he had dismissed as useless had such incredible strength. But Chiao Zhi's solo effort was not enough. The other shield guards' defenses were completely broken, and their entire defensive line was gone. Chiao Zhi himself was finally beaten, his armor breaking as he was sent flying by a powerful blow. He lay on the ground, bleeding and defeated, as the monsters prepared to deliver the final blow. Seeing their last line of defense fall, one of the teachers, his face a mask of sweat and terror, said that their situation was now truly hopeless. Just as the monsters were about to overrun the defenseless group, a blur of motion cut through the chaos. To the amazement of the teacher, Yunche appeared, standing on top of the body of a defeated monster. He held his massive, glowing crystal longsword, his eyes showing a cold, deadly calm. He looked down at his beaten and bleeding friend, Chiao Zhi, and praised him for his bravery. He then turned his attention to the monster group, his voice filled with strong confidence, and said, "Leave the rest to me." A short time ago, back in the mirror world, Yunche stood before the crystal core. He realized that since he had found the replica, the original, real-world version must still exist. This meant that with his mirror world ability, he could effectively double his harvest of any valuable resource. However, he knew there were limits. He had gathered 75 pieces of the valuable crystal ore, but bringing them all out would require 750 minutes of mirror walk time, far more than he had. He understood that like the crystal core, each piece of ore cost 10 minutes of his time to bring out. Faced with this limit, he made a choice. He would loot the real-world crystal core, but for now, he would use the replica he found in the mirror world to get its powerful buffs right away. A system notification confirmed that he had used both the real and mirrored versions of the core, which doubled the stat increases and gave him a powerful 40% immunity to light and electric type damage. After using the core, as he stood on top of the massive crystal formation in the real world, he suddenly felt a powerful vibration shake the whole cave. His eyes widened in alarm as he sensed the new disturbance. Wondering what had happened, he jumped into action, diving off the crystal formation to find the source of the noise. As he leaped from the crystal formation, Yunche decided to test his new ability to exit the mirror world whenever he wanted. He phased through the crystal walls, entering the parallel dimension once more, and noted that he still had almost 13 minutes of his mirror walk time left. With a confident smirk, he confirmed another key part of his power. As long as he had time left on his mirror walk, he could enter and exit the dimension at any time. The ability would only go on cooldown once the entire time was used up. He immediately tested this, phasing back through the crystal walls and successfully returning to reality. When he returned, however, he saw a shocking sight. The number of monsters had grown hugely, far more than the crystal ore alone could explain. Towering over them all was the giant Wandering Lord, and Yunche finally understood that this creature was the true source of the dangerous feeling he had felt from the very beginning. Realizing the huge danger, his first thought was for his friend. He knew that Chiao and the others were in great danger, but with his new control over the mirror world, a new plan began to form in his mind. Knowing he could now enter and exit the dimension at any time, he saw a chance to turn the tables on the seemingly unbeatable boss. With his new control over his ultimate skill, Yunche came up with a new strategy. He began to phase in and out of the mirror world, using the other dimension to instantly move around, easily dodging the monster's attacks before reappearing in the real world to strike. This hit-and-run tactic was very effective. After taking down several more of the elite monsters, he reached level 24. He took a moment to check his new power, calculating that with his increased mana and the doubled mana recovery from the crystal cores, he could now stack his Blade of Trickery skill to get a huge 330% increase in his attack power. However, Yunche stayed realistic. He knew that while his current power was crazy, it was still not enough to face the giant Wandering Lord, a creature even stronger than a normal dungeon boss. He decided that he would need to reach at least level 30 to have a real chance of winning, and he knew he was still a long way from his goal. The story then returns to the desperate moment in the real world, with the students and teachers about to be killed. Just as all hope seems lost, Yunche exits the mirror world for the final time and appears in the middle of the battlefield. Standing on the body of a defeated monster, he looks at his beaten but brave friend, Chiao, and praises him for his courage. With strong will, he tells his friend to leave the rest to him, ready to face the huge group of monsters alone. Exiting the mirror world for the last time, Yunche landed firmly on the ground, ready to fight. He immediately took charge, telling those with support skills to buff him while he took on the Wanderer Horde. Yunsha and Xiaoji reacted right away. The powerful high-level student used her Starlight Mystic art, while Xiaoji cast his defensive Surround Shield and Shield Armor, both skills buffing Yunche with a big boost to his spirit and attack power. Now stronger, Yunche became a storm of destruction, his massive crystal longsword cutting through the groups of elite monsters with ease. He knew that while the number of enemies was ridiculous, he was no longer in any real danger. After using the 2 crystal core secret treasures, his health was several times higher than before, and his 40% damage reduction against the monster's light and electric attacks made him very tough. His only frustration was that the monsters were immune to the confusion effect from his Chaotic Thorn skill, which would have made killing them much faster. The other students and teachers could only watch in shocked silence. The teacher, Lei Li, and the other seniors who had previously looked down on him were in complete disbelief. They checked his status bar and confirmed he was a support class chanter, but they couldn't understand how his attack power was so high, or what strange skill let him seem to teleport around the battlefield by phasing through the mirror world. Lei Li, his arm bleeding from an earlier injury, looked on with a mix of shock and awe. He couldn't believe that the younger student he had been so worried about was actually this strong. With his new power and toughness, Yunche became an unstoppable force, tearing through the endless group of elite wanderer monsters. The sheer number of high-quality enemies gave an incredible amount of experience, and he found himself leveling up at an amazingly fast rate. Yunsha, who had earlier identified him as the intruder at the Ding residence, could only watch in amazement. She had first thought he was just a bold thief, but now she had to admit that his strength was far beyond anything she could have imagined. Yunyin was just as stunned, left speechless by the incredible display of power from the boy who shared her last name. Yunche continued his non-stop attack, phasing in and out of the mirror world to move and strike, his movements a blur of purple energy. He gained level after level, one after another, quickly reaching level 28. The other students and teachers, who had been about to die just moments before, were completely shocked. One of the teachers, Lei Li, wondered if Yunche was some kind of high-level support from outside, but then remembered seeing him before and realized he was a student. His companion, Little Z, was even more shocked, unable to believe that a mere student could have such huge power. Despite Yunche's incredible performance, the Wandering Lord was still a massive threat. As the giant beast got ready to shoot another of its devastating energy beams, the students and teachers cried out in alarm. Yunche, his face serious, knew that even with all his recent power-ups, he would not be able to survive a direct hit from that attack. As the Wandering Lord began to move forward, its energy beam still blazing, the students and teachers behind their makeshift shield wall knew their time was running out. Once the giant beast got close, the two shields would not be enough to protect them. The teacher, Lei Li, seeing that Yunche had greatly reduced the number of smaller monsters, shouted for everyone to break out and head for the other exit. He knew that no matter how strong the mysterious student was, there was no way he could fight the Wandering Lord alone. However, his plan was immediately met with pushback. One of the other students pointed out the problem. The two massive shields were too hard to move. If they left them to make a run for it, they would be completely open to the Lord's devastating attacks. Another student added that the shields were too heavy to be carried and could only be moved by storing them in an inventory, which none of them could do. Just as their argument got heated, a calm voice cut through the chaos, telling them to leave it to him. It was Yunche. He laid out a new, selfless plan. He would attack the Wandering Lord to get its attention, giving the rest of them a chance to retreat. The teacher, Lei Li, was stunned by his sacrifice, asking what would happen to him if they all ran. Yunche explained his thinking. He knew from his past life that if a Wandering Lord isn't dealt with, it will eventually gather all the monsters in the dungeon and wander into the outside world, causing a major disaster. With a look of serious determination, he declared that he would stay behind and kill the beast himself. He activated his Blade of Trickery, boosting his attack power by a huge 350%, and noted that he still had over 5 minutes left on his mirror walk, giving him the perfect tool to take on the giant enemy. As Yunche got ready to face the Wandering Lord alone, the teacher, Lei Li, made the hard choice to lead the others in a retreat. He told them to get out faster, thinking that no matter how strong Yunche was, he would eventually get tired against such a huge enemy. He figured that the sooner they escaped, the sooner Yunche could escape too. When a student questioned Yunche's bold claim that he could kill the Lord, Lei Li said it was just a brave act to make them feel better because he knew how powerful a real Wandering Lord was. As he was forced to run with the group, Chiao felt completely useless. He looked back with a sad face, hating that all he could do at a time like this was run while his friend faced incredible danger. Silently, he prayed for Yunche's safety. Meanwhile, Yunche was not helpless at all. He kept fighting through the smaller monsters, getting stronger with every kill, and he quickly gained another level. As the huge Wandering Lord shot its powerful energy beam, Yunche used his mirror walk to phase out of reality. The beam passed right through the space where he had just been. He then reappeared behind the beast and hit it with a powerful slash from his glowing sword. However, his attack showed a hard truth. The Wandering Lord, a level 42 stone golem, had such a strong defense and a powerful healing skill that the small amount of damage he did was healed right away. He realized that at his current level, it was no use. Its defense was just too high. As he dodged the Wandering Lord's attacks, Yunche's first tests confirmed what he thought. He saw a large crystal on the creature's head was its core, which meant it was also its weak point. The only problem was getting to it. Even with his many buffs, his attack power was still not enough to break through the Lord's strong defense and healing. To make things worse, his time was running out. A quick look at his status showed that the powerful buffs he had gotten from the others were starting to wear off. His own mana was also very low, and he knew he wouldn't be able to use his powerful Blade of Trickery skill for much longer. He realized he had only one good option. He needed to get stronger. He needed to level up first by killing the weaker monsters. Just as he was about to start attacking the smaller monsters again, a bright beam of light shot out from a nearby crack in the rock. Yunche's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized the light. At that exact moment, the huge Wandering Lord also saw the light and, with a scary show of intelligence, shot its powerful energy beam at the crack. Yunche immediately phased into the mirror world to avoid the blast, but as he reappeared, he was shocked to see the beam was aimed at the exact spot where he would show up. He realized with a jolt that the smart boss had already learned his pattern and was guessing his moves. Forced to reappear in the real world in the middle of the Wandering Lord's huge energy beam, Yunche was caught in the blast. The attack was a big, continuous one that quickly took away his health, even with his powerful defenses. He knew he couldn't use his mirror walk to dodge, as he had less than 4 minutes of it left, and the continuous attack would use it all up in no time. His only choice was to use his undead army to block the damage. However, he knew this was a costly plan. Bringing his summons back to life would use a lot of his already low mana, leaving him with nothing left to build up his attack power for a counterattack. He began to wonder if he should retreat and regroup first. Just as he was about to be beaten, another powerful blast hit the Lord's attack. To his surprise, he saw that Yunsha, Yunyin, and even Xiaoji had come back to the fight. Yunsha explained with a playful smile that this little brother of his, meaning Xiaoji, had begged and pleaded for them to come back and help him. Xiaoji, with his back turned, quickly said that he hadn't begged. He explained that since the number of smaller monsters had gone down, the rest of the group now had enough people to escape on their own, which meant he was free to come back and help. Hearing his friend's brave decision, a real, thankful smile appeared on Yunche's face as he simply said, "Thanks." With their group now stronger, Yunsha took a commanding position. She told Yunche that the hidden boss was still too dangerous and that she and the others would cover him so he could make a slow retreat. However, Yunche completely refused her offer. He said that with their help, there was no longer any need for him to hold back, and he used the full power he had. With the help of his powerful allies, he kept farming the smaller monsters, and his mirror walk time finally ran out as he reached the key level of 30. Now at his target level, he knew his attack power was finally enough to take on the Lord. He immediately put on the rare, level 30, Corrupted Knight's armor he had gotten from the Ding family's dungeon, which greatly increased his defenses. Yunsha watched him, asking if he was really thinking of attacking the Lord's weak point on its head. She pointed out that at that height, it was impossible to get up there. But Yunche was one step ahead. He revealed that he had already gotten the tool he had always wanted, the Gravitational Pull skill book, which he had looted from one of the Wanderer monsters. The skill let its user pull a target object towards them. More importantly, its reversed form, gravitational traction, did the opposite, pulling the user towards the target, with the pull getting stronger the lower the user's strength. With this new movement ability, the Lord's weak point was no longer out of reach. He activated his Blade of Trickery, quickly building up his attack power, and with a confident smile, he promised the others that everything was under control. With his plan set and his power fully built up, Yunche reached out a hand covered in purple energy, aiming for the huge Wandering Lord's head. He then used his new skill, Gravitational Traction, and a powerful force grabbed him, pulling him forward with incredible speed. He shot through the air like a rocket, breaking the rocky ground as he flew right towards the giant monster. In an amazing show of skill and power, he landed perfectly on the Wandering Lord's head, putting himself right next to its glowing crystal core, his powerful sword crackling with energy and ready to strike. Down below, Yunsha and Yunyin, who had just said it was impossible to reach that height, could only stare upwards, their faces frozen in looks of absolute shock and disbelief at the impossible thing he had just done. Having reached the Wandering Lord's weak point, Yunche used all of his power. He drove his massively buffed sword deep into the glowing crystal core, causing a spiderweb of cracks to spread across its surface. The huge beast, however, would not go down without a fight. As it was dying, it let out a final massive explosion of pure energy from its core, a last-ditch effort to take its attacker down with it. Yunche was caught in the center of the blast, his health dropping quickly as a flood of messages confirmed the massive, continuous damage he was taking. But his new defenses and increased health held strong. He gritted his teeth and survived the attack, and when the light finally faded, he was left standing, beaten but alive, while the Wandering Lord's massive crystal body broke into a million pieces. A series of messages confirmed his incredible victory. He had defeated the Wandering Lord, earning a massive bonus of 5,000 experience points and the respected title of Wanderer Killer. More importantly, the hidden boss had dropped 2 legendary quality skill books, Golden Light Shield and Angel's Protection, rewards of immense power and value. With a final, powerful strike to the Wandering Lord's core, Yunche used all of his built-up power. The giant beast broke into a million pieces, and the explosion of energy and experience instantly gave him 3 more levels, bringing him to level 33. The students and teachers watching were left in stunned silence. Xiaozhu could only say how incredibly strong his friend had become, while Yunyin and Yunsha couldn't believe he had actually managed to kill such a scary monster all by himself. As he stood among the falling pieces, Yunche saw 2 beams of golden light come from the monster's remains. He had gotten 2 legendary quality items, but before he could look at his new loot, he had to jump to safety as the huge, headless body of the Wandering Lord began to fall over. Yunsha shouted a warning, realizing that Yunche was still on top of the falling giant. With skilled agility, he expertly moved through the crumbling remains of the monster, jumping from one piece to the next until he landed safely on the ground. As the dust settled, a new, huge opening was revealed in the side of the mountain where the Lord had fallen. The inside of the mountain was empty, showing a vast, dark cave filled with the skeletal remains of both wanderer monsters and humans. Looking at the old battlefield, Yunche came to a serious realization. An even stronger, more ancient Wandering Lord must have been born here long ago. He now understood why there were so many intense battle scars all over the dungeon. As he looked at the old empty mountain, Yunche's eyes were drawn to a single figure outlined against the dim light at the very top. His heart skipped a beat as he recognized the armored warrior, still in a final defiant pose, his great sword stuck firmly in the ground. A system message confirmed the impossible. It was the body of Chiao En, who was also known by his nickname, Chiao Benben. Yunche could only whisper his friend's name in disbelief. The other students and teachers soon arrived at the scene, just as stunned by the sight. Yunsha, her voice full of awe, identified the figure as the famous traitor, Chiao En. She admitted that while she had heard this was the place where he was killed by the hero Ding Kun, she had never expected the scene to be like this. The battlefield was a sign of a desperate last stand against countless monsters and people. She noted that the heroic, defiant figure before them was completely different from the statue in the Modern History Memorial Hall, which showed him being stepped on. This, she declared, did not look like someone who would be so easily beaten. Yunsha stayed silent, his face a mask of grief and sadness as he looked at the remains of his fallen friend. Chiaoji, his great-grandson, finally spoke. He told Yunche that while he probably wouldn't believe him, he now thought that his great-grandfather might not have been a bad person at all. As Chiaoji stood before his great-grandfather's remains, he began to explain the truth he had found. He told Yunche that he had spent his childhood looking through the historical records of his great-grandfather, but whenever he got to the parts about his experiences, the descriptions were always frustratingly unclear. Despite this, he had managed to find some key details. He had discovered that his great-grandfather had a habit of going into dungeons that were far below his actual level. This led him to the main question: why would an S-rank professional, someone over level 60, come to a low-level dungeon like this one? He then answered his own question with new certainty. It was because this dungeon was one of the few places that could spawn a Wandering Lord, a creature that could summon all the monsters in a dungeon and lead them into the outside world, causing a major disaster. He explained that back in those days, the government didn't have enough soldiers to defend against the constant threat of monsters coming out of dungeons. They had to rely on a few powerful and responsible professionals to regularly clear out the most dangerous threats. His great-grandfather, he declared with pride, was one of those heroes. He hadn't been a traitor. He had come to this dungeon to stop a potential disaster before it started. As Yunche listened silently to this revelation, Chaoji's confidence started to fade. He admitted that the others probably thought he was just making things up, and that even his own family believed he was just looking for mental comfort, twisting the unclear historical texts to fit a story he wanted to believe. Just as he was about to give up hope, a hand gently rested on his shoulder. He looked up to see Yunche, a kind, understanding smile on his face, who simply said, "I believe you." As Yunsha and Yunyin looked on with expressions of shock and admiration, Chaoji was completely overwhelmed, left speechless by Yunche's simple, heartfelt statement of belief. A flood of memories washed over Yunche as he remembered his fallen friend and comrade, Chiao Benben, whose heroic legacy had been so cruelly twisted. He recalled Chiao Benben's youthful arrogance, how he would boast that his natural talent meant he didn't need a master and would soon be better than Yunche himself. But he also remembered the boy's terror when he got in over his head, screaming for his master to save him from a swarm of monsters, only to then stubbornly deny that he needed saving at all. His pride hurt. He remembered his friend's unique habit of working hard in secret, only to then show off his new strength in front of others, and how he always chose the weakest shield-bearer class, the sword guard, because no other shield-type class was fast enough to keep up with Yunche's reckless attacks. He remembered how he always seemed to find Chiao Benben, even when he tried to sneak off on his own to grind levels, and how his friend would always make excuses, claiming he just couldn't resist a good fight, insisting that saving people was just something he did on the way. Filled with a new sense of purpose and a burning desire for revenge, Yunche looked at the remains of his friend. He declared that, for Chiao Benben's sake, he would settle the score with the Ding family, the ones who caused his friend's suffering after his death. Back at the Ding family residence, Ding Shu is telling the story of the dungeon expedition to his unbelieving father and uncle. He insists that what he is saying is true, that Yunche is just that amazing, and that they can ask the teacher in charge if they don't believe him. He explains that he was initially blocked from entering the dungeon because of his low level, but he waited outside until the survivors came out. The scene flashes back to the students leaving the dungeon, buzzing with excitement. They had all witnessed the fall of the giant wandering lord from a distance and were in awe of the person who had managed to kill a rare hidden boss that was over level 40, a feat that was beyond their imagination. Ding Shu, listening in, confirmed that the hero's name was Yun Che. He couldn't believe that someone even more powerful than the high-level Yun Yin had been among the students, and he wondered about Yun Che's true identity. Back in the present, after hearing his son's report, the third head, Ding Ge, is silent for a moment. He then gets up from his seat and gives a chilling command to gather the Ding family guards and follow him to the traitor's dungeon, the very place where Chiao En had died. His brother Ding Yi stops him, remembering a detail from Ding Shu's earlier report about the intruders at their home. With a sinister look in his eyes, he tells his brother to bring the members of the Chiao family along with them as well. Meanwhile, back in the dungeon, Yun Che looked at one of the legendary skill books he had gotten from the Wandering Lord, the Golden Light Shield. Without hesitating, he offered the powerful book to Chiao Ji, telling him he should learn it since it didn't have a level requirement. Yunsha, who was watching them, was shocked. She asked why he would so easily give away a legendary skill. Yunsha calmly explained that the skill was only for shield bearers, so it was useless for him. He then added an important detail, suggesting that Chiao Ji's great-grandfather, Chiao En, probably used this very skill in his time. Moved by this, Chiao Ji accepted the book. Yunsha looked on thoughtfully. She commented that while Chiao Ji might not have many powerful skills, Yunche certainly had plenty of them. She admitted that even though her own skills were considered high level, she felt she was far behind him, mentioning his ability to seemingly teleport and his power to summon a large number of undead creatures. Her mention of the undead made Yunche's expression turn serious as his eyes glowed. He suddenly remembered a key detail about his power. His undead summons were created from souls he found in the mirror world. This led him to a deep realization. If other souls also went to the mirror world after they died, then it was possible that his old friend Chiao En's soul was waiting there as well. After his sudden realization, a look of nervous excitement crossed Yunche's face. A system message confirmed that his mirror walk ability was ready again, giving him a full 30 minutes to explore the mirror world. He immediately wondered if he could use this chance to find his old friend's soul. With a determined look, he activated the skill, his body covered in a familiar purple light as he stepped into the other dimension. Inside the strange blue-green landscape of the mirror world, he found what he was looking for, a powerful, ghostly figure in full armor, with a calm but strong presence. Yunche was filled with emotion, whispering the nickname of his fallen friend, Chiao Ben, confirming that his friend's soul had indeed been waiting here all along. Back in the real world, time had passed, and Yun Yin went up to Yunsha, reminding her that they should be leaving soon as she had an important audience ceremony to go to. Yunsha seemed unwilling to go, admitting they had been there for a while, but that the events happening were much more interesting. Her eyes drifted to where Yun Che had been, and she wondered out loud to the others what he could possibly be doing and why he had been gone for so long, not knowing about the reunion he was having in another dimension. Inside the mirror world, Yun Che stood with a serious expression. He spoke to the armored soul of his old friend, Chiao Ben, saying he couldn't believe they could meet again. He mentioned having so much he wanted to say to him. However, his reunion was cut short. He noted with sadness that it was a shame his friend wouldn't be able to answer, as the calm spirit was suddenly taken over by a dark, evil energy, twisting its form into a monstrous, roaring, undead creature. Yuncho realized with a heavy heart that his friend had truly become an undead spirit, a being driven by instinct instead of memory. He admitted that he really didn't want to fight him, but he had no other choice. He launched himself into the air, dodging an attack and getting ready for a difficult battle. As their battle began, Yunche's eyes glowed with purple energy as he focused on his opponent. As they fought, something strange happened. Yunche found himself surrounded by floating crystal pieces, each one showing a different scene. He recognized them as moments from Ben's life and experiences. One piece in particular caught his attention, showing a clear memory of Ben's final battle against the man known as the hero, Ding Kun. As he watched the memory of the fight, Yunche noticed something odd about Ding Kun's posture and fighting style, finding it strangely familiar. Suddenly, the entire mirrored landscape around them shattered like glass. When the pieces settled, Yunche saw that the monstrous undead form had vanished, leaving only the calm, armored soul of Chiao En standing before him once more. He was left completely confused, wondering what had just happened. Still trapped in the mirror world, Yunche hesitantly called out his friend's name again, only for the calm soul of Chiao to once more burst into a monstrous, roaring undead creature, swinging a shadowy purple energy blade. Yunche blocked the fierce attack, his expression serious as he realized the truth. The two then started a frantic battle, their purple energy-filled strikes clashing with immense force. Yunche understood that his friend was truly gone, with only his raw fighting instincts left in this evil form. Seeing no point in fighting the shell of his friend, he decided to retreat first. However, when he tried to leave, a system message appeared, telling him that he could not exit the mirror world from his current location. A wave of frustration washed over him. With no other choice, he accepted that he would have to fight. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Chaoji stood alone, a look of shocked determination on his face as he clenched his fist. His solitude was broken by the arrival of a large group led by Ding Ge and Ding Yi. One of them asked why Chaoji was all alone, and wondered out loud if Yunche had sensed their approach and run away in fear. Dinga looked down on the boy with a smug grin, saying that this was only half the fun. Chaoji, trying to act like he didn't know what was going on, asked Ding Shu why he had come and if he was also there to level up. Ding Ge scoffed at the act, telling the little brat from the Chiao family to stop pretending. He directly accused Chaoji of being the one who helped Yunche sneak into his house and steal their property. When Chaoji tried to deny it, Ding Shu leaned in threateningly, asking if he thought he wouldn't recognize the sound of his screams. The threat sent a chill down Chaoji's spine, his face turning pale with fear. Brushing the matter aside with a cruel wave of his hand, Ding Ge announced with a sinister smile that none of that was important now, as he had brought Chaoji a little gift. Chaoji's face showed pure terror as Ding Ge repeated his sinister offer, revealing his little gift. As Chaoji's eyes widened in horror, a group of tired-looking people were brought forward by the Ding family guards. It was his own family. He recognized them in disbelief, whispering the names of his grand-uncles, grand-aunts, and finally, his own mother, who looked back at him with a tired, defeated expression. Before he could understand the situation, one of his elderly relatives, his second grand-uncle, exploded with rage. He screamed at Chaoji, telling him to kneel and apologize to the hero's family and to Ding Shu. Chaoji, looking down, started to say that he didn't want to live like this anymore, but his granduncle cut him off, angrily asking what he had taught him about how to act in front of the Ding family, screaming at him to kneel once more. This was the last straw for Chaoji. He snapped, his voice filled with years of held-back anger and shame as he shouted back, asking if the Chiao family was meant to be the Ding family's dogs for generations. His defiance shocked his family members, who looked on in horror. However, another one of his relatives, Chiao Li, stepped forward and strongly agreed with the old man, shouting that for the descendants of a terrible traitor, being dogs was more than good enough. The pressure on Chaoji grew as another female relative tearfully asked if he was trying to get their whole family killed, begging him to think of his father. She reminded him of how hard his mother had worked to support the family ever since his father had gone mad, trying to make him feel guilty and give in. After a moment of silence, Chaoji's attitude changed completely. He turned and pointed with passion towards the skeletal remains of his ancestor on the mountain. He declared to everyone that the truth was that his great-grandfather had come to this very dungeon to stop a cataclysm before it could happen. He insisted that his ancestor was only defeated because so many people had ambushed him, causing his heroic sacrifice. He explained that he had been collecting information about his great-grandfather for a long time, but had always been missing the final, clear evidence. Now, with the scene of that final battle right before their eyes, he had the proof he needed. With fire in his eyes, he proclaimed that his ancestor was no traitor, and that the official history was just propaganda. He turned to his stunned family, telling them that if they made this truth public, they could finally clear their ancestor's name and escape their life of servitude. His voice rose with righteous anger as he declared that the Ding family had no right to treat them this way, and that their other relatives should never have died for such a lie. His passionate speech was met not with denial, but with a burst of condescending laughter from Ding Ge, who found it childishly amusing. He then calmly walked forward, a smug look on his face, and confirmed that everything Chaoji had just said was, in fact, correct. He admitted that Chaoen was indeed killed in an ambush and was not an evil man. Then, with a chilling lack of regret, he revealed the final damning truth. His own grandfather, the hero Ding Kun, was the one who had planned that ambush to make his fortune. Chaoji could only listen, stunned into silence by the casual confession of the crime that had ruined his family for generations. With a manic grin, Ding Ge leaned in close to the horrified Chaoji and cruelly dismissed the truth, asking who even cared about it. He declared that the official story was all that mattered. Chiao En was an imperial traitor, and therefore he was vile. Spreading his arms wide before his armored guards, he mocked Chiao Zhi further, asking what it mattered if he drove his father mad or killed his relatives, proclaiming that as descendants of traitors, they deserved their lowly fate. He then delivered the most devastating blow. Pointing a finger at the terrified Chiao family, he revealed that they had known the truth all along. He asked Chiao Zhi how else he thought the relatives he'd mentioned had died, implying they were silenced for knowing too much. With the mental torment complete, Ding Yi adjusted his tie with a smug smile and gave a simple, chilling command for them to kneel. Immediately, and without a word of protest, the entire Chiao family, including the elderly, fell to their knees in submission. Chiao Ji's mother, now kneeling on the cold ground, pleaded with her son, whom she called Ah Ji. She begged him to admit he was wrong and stop resisting, telling him it was useless. With tears streaming down her face, she confessed her deepest fear. After his father went mad, she couldn't bear to lose her son as well. Hearing his mother's heartbreaking plea, Chiao Ji stood frozen, his body filled with despair and conflict. Just as his spirit was about to break, a new, gentle voice cut through the tension. A woman with long brown hair reached out a hand towards him, telling him not to listen to them. She looked at him with a kind smile and told him that he was the best. The woman's words of encouragement seemed to vanish as Ding Shu, his face covered in bandages from his last encounter with Yun Che, stepped forward with a sneer. Annoyed by Chiao Ji's hesitation, he called him clueless and launched a vicious kick, shouting that he would force him to kneel one way or another. But this time was different. To Ding Shu's shock, Chiao Ji's eyes glowed with power as he effortlessly blocked the kick with his forearm. Before Ding Shu could react, Chiao Ji grabbed his leg and with a powerful roar, slammed him into the rocky ground, shattering it on impact. Standing tall amidst the broken pieces, Chiao Ji looked at his fallen tormentor with a new resolve and declared firmly that he would never kneel again. Breathing heavily with rage and humiliation, Ding Shu scrambled to his feet. He couldn't believe this was happening. He furiously summoned a massive, glowing crystal hammer, screaming that Chiao Ji had grown a backbone and dared to fight back. He charged forward, vowing to remind him of his place as a punching bag. As the powerful hammer was about to crash down, Chiao Ji went through a stunning transformation. In a flash of light, he was suddenly dressed in full plate armor, holding a massive shield that appeared just in time to block Ding Shu's furious blow with a deafening clang. The attack was completely stopped, leaving Ding Shu gritting his teeth in disbelief. Now, a formidable protector, Chiao Ji stood firmly between Ding Shu and his kneeling family, shielding them from harm. He glanced back at his mother, then turned his gaze back to his attacker, his voice ringing with conviction. With a powerful punch, he sent Ding Shu staggering back, shouting that they were not the descendants of a traitor, but the descendants of a true hero. Chiao Ji's sudden show of strength left Ding Ge speechless, while Ding Shu stumbled back in complete disbelief. His mind was spinning, and he clutched his head, unable to understand how the boy he had always bullied could suddenly become so much stronger. Blinded by anger, he charged again, screaming that Chiao Zhi was just a punching bag he had been beating up since they were children. He swung his weapon in a wide, powerful circle, furious that his old victim would dare to fight back. However, Chiao Ji met the hit head-on, his armored body easily taking the impact and sending Ding Shu crashing to the ground once more. As his family watched in stunned silence, Chiao Ji looked down at his defeated tormentor and declared with strong confidence that he was no longer the person he used to be. At the same time, in the mirror world, a much more desperate battle was happening. Yun Che was locked in a fierce fight with the evil soul of Chiao Ben. He knew that he was facing his friend in his prime, a warrior of incredible power. The difference between their current strengths was huge. Yun Che knew that if it weren't for the fact that Ben was a defensive class and was currently mindless, he would have been beaten in an instant. However, Yun Che had one very important advantage. He was the one who had taught Ben all of his fighting moves. He knew his friend's weaknesses like the back of his hand, which allowed him to guess and counter his moves. But even with this knowledge, the fight was incredibly difficult. The spirit's defense was that of a level 60+ warrior, and even with his blade of trickery fully powered up, Yun Che's attacks barely did any damage. Suddenly, the undead spirit let out a huge, explosive wave of golden energy. Yun Che instantly recognized the move. It was the legendary skill, Golden Light Shield, the very one he had given to Chiao Ji just moments before. He got ready, blocking the powerful attack, a look of grim determination on his face as he realized how much of a pain this fight was going to be. Back in the real world, a humiliated Ding Shu screamed in fury and attacked Chiao Ji with a powerful skill called Mountain Shaking Wild Hammer. However, Chiao Ji, now a strong tank, not only blocked the hit, but sent Ding Shu flying with a powerful punch of his own. He then followed up with a sweeping shield bash that sent Ding Shu crashing to the ground. Watching this pathetic display, Ding Ge sneered at his nephew, asking how he could now be losing to the little brat from the Chiao family. Deciding to take matters into his own hands, he announced that he would take out Ding Shu's anger for him, and lunged at Chiao Ju with a powerful, energy-filled strike. As his fist was about to hit, he was met with a blinding flash of golden light. He looked on in disbelief as he realized Chiao Ji had summoned a huge, crackling energy barrier, the legendary Golden Light Shield. With his new power, Chiao Ji taunted his attackers, calling the so-called hero family nothing but cowards who didn't even dare to fight one-on-one. At the same time, in the mirror world, Yunche was facing the very same legendary skill. The undead spirit of his friend was protected by the same bright golden shield, and Yunche was letting out a relentless series of purple energy slashes against it. He knew exactly how the skill worked. As a legendary ability, the Golden Light Shield's defensive power was not just based on the user's stats. As long as it wasn't hit by a single attack that was more than double its endurance limit, it could take at least 10 direct hits. However, it had a critical weakness. It was a consumable skill. Even the smallest amount of damage would drain its energy, and Yunche was using this flaw, chipping away at its power with each strike. Back in the real world, the Golden Light Shield, protecting Chiao Ji, finally broke under the relentless attack from the Ding family members. Ding Ge scoffed, not impressed by the legendary skill. With a look of pure evil, he declared that it wouldn't have mattered even if the trash Chiao En himself had used it. Holding the beaten Ding Shu in a headlock, Chiao Ji shot back with new courage, claiming that if his great-grandfather were truly there, Ding Ge would be the one on his knees begging for mercy. Enraged by this defiance, Ding Ge let out a wave of powerful red energy that sent everyone flying. He loomed over the armored Chiao Ji, mocking his ancestor as a useless fool who died in a low-level dungeon. He continued his rant, saying that even if Chiao En were present, he too would be forced to kneel. To prove his point, he stomped his foot, letting out a powerful skill, Gravity Shockwave, that caused the very ground to erupt in a violent upheaval of rock and force. The attack hit Chiao Ji with brutal force, causing him to cough up blood, but he miraculously stayed standing. Ding Ge looked on with a surprised smirk, commenting on how tough the boy was. He then summoned a huge glowing crystal axe, his expression turning sadistic as he wondered out loud how Chiao Ji would stand after he chopped off his legs. As he raised the axe to strike, Chiao Ji's mother threw herself in front of her son, desperately pleading with the third master to spare him, claiming he was just young and foolish. She fell to her knees, offering herself in his place, begging Ding Ge to do whatever he wanted to her instead. Her desperate plea gave Ding Ge a new, cruel idea. A wicked smile spread across his face as he looked from the mother to her son. He then gave a horrific ultimatum to the bloodied and cornered Chiao Ji. If he refused to kneel, he would kill his mother right in front of him. Losing his patience with the standoff, Ding Ge casually dismissed his threat, claiming there were plenty of other people to kill as he swung his axe towards Chiao Ji's mother. Panicked, Chiao Ji screamed for him to wait, his resolve finally breaking as he prepared to give up. But before he could say another word, the entire area was rocked by a massive explosion of dust and debris that erupted from the ground, blocking everyone's vision. When the dust finally began to settle, the Ding family guards and the Chiao family were left staring in stunned silence at what had appeared. Before them stood a towering, ghostly figure in full dark armor, radiating an intimidating blue aura. Ding Ge, his axe still raised, could only stare in utter disbelief, recognizing the impossible figure before him. He stammered out the name, Chiao En. The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. Chiao Ji's mother looked on, whispering, "Grandfather?" in a mix of awe and terror, while the Ding family guards erupted in panicked confusion, questioning how a dead person could possibly be resurrected. One of the Chiao family elders, however, recognized the ghostly form for what it was, identifying it as an undead. At that moment, another figure emerged from the dust cloud, standing calmly beside the formidable undead warrior. It was Yunche. He looked at the stunned crowd with a cold, accusing glare, reminding them of how they had all looked down on Chiao En just moments before. With a smirk of grim satisfaction, he declared that it was only natural for Chiao En to crawl back from the depths of hell to settle the score with them all. The tall, ghostly form of the undead Chiao En stood as a silent protector before the stunned crowd. After his initial shock, Ding Ge scoffed at what he thought was just a trick and angrily ordered his guards to attack. A squad of armored warriors rushed forward with their weapons raised. However, they were met with a display of skill they couldn't understand. The undead hero moved smoothly, its sword and shield a blur as it effortlessly blocked all their attacks at once. The Chiao family elders watched in awe, one whispering in disbelief, asking if that incredible warrior was really Chiao En. Chiao Zhi was also amazed, seeing the mastery in the parry and how it stopped so many skilled guards at once. From a distance, Ding saw the undead was one of Yunche's summons, like the small fry he summoned during the raid on their home. Seeing the spirit was only level 33, he sneered. He declared that even as the spirit of Chiao En, it was still weak and charged forward with his flaming axe to finish it himself. As Ding's powerful blow came down, the undead warrior's weapon was coated in a strange, thick energy. To Ding's complete surprise, his attack was perfectly parried with enough force to send him stumbling back. Angry and embarrassed, a red aura exploded around him as he called the parry a mere trick, shouting that skill was useless against pure power. He then unleashed a powerful charging skill, Boulder Bash, planning to crush the undead warrior completely. But just as the huge attack was about to hit, the undead Chiao En again summoned the bright, golden light shield. The powerful charge slammed into the strong golden barrier, and Ding could only roar in frustration as he was stopped by the legendary skill again. From a safe distance, Yunche smirked as he watched the standoff. He taunted the struggling Ding, explaining that even as an undead, Ben was still an S-class spirit, and the legendary golden light shield alone was more than enough to keep him busy for a long time. Pushed back by the shield's great power, a furious Ding realized its weakness. He ordered all his men to attack at once, hoping to overwhelm the shield and drain its energy with numbers. However, their attack was stopped by a new wave of summons. A group of skeletal warriors glowing with a scary green aura erupted from the ground, fighting the rest of the Ding family guards and stopping them from helping their master. Annoyed by this new delay, Ding changed his plan. Calling the summons a small problem, he activated his own power, putting on a full set of strong glowing red armor. With his power now boosted by a skill called Blazing Fury, he declared the summons didn't matter. He realized the real target was the summoner himself. With a roar, he unleashed a powerful skill, Accumulated Pressure Punch, directly at Yunche, knowing that if he could kill him, all the summoned creatures would disappear. With his eyes glowing with evil intent, Ding charged forward, bragging about the high-level gear his grandfather gave him. He was sure Yunche had no chance, but just as his attack was about to land, it was met with a flash of purple light. A single, clean slice cut right through his attack. Dingo was shocked, unable to understand how Yunche was unharmed. Before he could figure out what happened, Yunche unleashed a rush of red energy slashes, a skill called Tearing Claw, that completely erased Ding's attack. Ding could only stare in disbelief as his powerful skill vanished. In that moment of confusion, Yunche appeared behind him in a flash and stabbed him with his sword. As Ding stumbled from the surprise attack, Yunche saw his opening and called to his ghostly ally. The undead Chiao En responded right away, its sword crackling with bright blue energy. In a perfectly timed move, Yunche leaped high into the air, using the undead hero's outstretched sword as a launch pad to launch himself forward with great force. He shot towards the wounded Ding and delivered a powerful spinning slash that sent the third master of the Ding family flying, bleeding and cursing in pure anger. With his eyes glowing with cold focus, Yunche continued his non-stop attack. He unleashed a powerful rush of purple energy slashes that completely overpowered Ding. Yunche moved in with lightning speed, his blade cleanly cutting off Ding's arm. Dinga screamed in pain, holding the bleeding stump and desperately calling for a priest to heal him. In his panic, Yunche appeared right behind him. Ding reacted by instinct, slamming his fist into the ground to unleash a powerful gravity impact shockwave, trying to push his attacker away. However, Yunche just vanished and reappeared a short distance away, unharmed. With a superior smirk, he asked the terrified third master what was wrong, taunting him by asking if he was scared. Sweat appeared on Ding's forehead as he frantically looked around, screaming again for a priest who wasn't there. He then saw why they were gone. His elite guards were being killed one by Yunche's army of ghostly skeletons, which now glowed with a scary green aura of new power. Yunche stood calmly among his ghostly army, a coldly confident look on his face. He mocked Ding, asking if he really believed his undead were still as weak as they were during the raid on his home. A system window showed the source of their new strength. A reversed skill that gave all his summons a huge 30% boost to both attack and defense, and a damaging aura that always harmed nearby enemies. Yunche explained that with the power of this legendary level skill, his army was now too strong for the Ding family guards to handle, his face a look of pure terror. Ding finally realized how hopeless his situation was. With his guards beaten and his own power useless, he made a desperate choice. Cursing quietly, he turned and ran. However, his escape was immediately cut short. The ground behind him burst open as the undead Chiao stuck its huge sword into the ground, making the ground shake hard. From the broken ground, a prison of huge, ghostly swords rose up, completely surrounding the terrified Ding and trapping him in a cage of blue energy he couldn't escape. Standing outside the barrier was Yun-che, his hair now a bright white and his aura glowing with a huge, calm power. He named the technique for the trapped man. It was the Sword Shield Absolute Array, a special skill of the Sword Guard class. He then added a chilling final word, explaining that no one below S-class had ever escaped it, before taunting the trapped man to try his luck. In a final desperate act, Ding raised his remaining gauntlet, which began to glow with a wild red energy. He screamed for Yun-che to stay back, showing that he held a void bomb, a powerful S-class item from his grandfather. He threatened to set it off, bragging that the explosion would be more than enough to kill everyone there, given their current levels and health. Yun-che, however, remained completely unmoved. His expression was calm, almost bored, as he looked at the desperate man. With a single, chilling word, he called Ding's bluff, telling him to go ahead and set it off. The command caught Ding completely by surprise. He hesitated, screaming that Yun-che must want to die. He then tried to get his confidence back, claiming that with his own high health, he would survive the blast even if everyone else died. But Yun-che had one final powerful counterbluff. He calmly stated that it didn't matter because even if the bomb managed to kill the undead Chiao, he could simply bring him back to life again. As Ding sweated in the trap he was in, Yun-che appeared behind him like a ghost, his voice cutting through the quiet. He continued what he was saying, telling the trapped man that while he might survive the bomb, Yun-che himself would be completely unharmed by the blast. Before Ding could even react to the unbelievable claim, Yun-che moved with amazing speed, his glowing blade flashing as it cleanly cut off the man's remaining arm, the one holding the powerful void bomb. The severed arm and its dangerous weapon fell uselessly to the ground with a heavy thud. With his enemy now completely unarmed and helpless, Yun-che, still glowing with a huge calm power, gave a single, cold command for him to kneel. As if forced by an unseen power, the ground around Ding legs shattered and reformed, pinning him down and forcing his broken body to kneel. Watching this show of complete power, Chiao, despite the blood on his face, couldn't help but smile with pride and relief. Nearby, the sad form of Ding Shu was seen trapped in the ghostly sword cage, crying without stopping. Yun-che then walked up to the defeated third master, placing his foot firmly on his back. He looked down at the man who had caused so much pain, his glowing sword held ready. With a coldly calm look, he asked the broken man to tell him what worth he thought he had left. After the hard battle, Yun-che looked at the items he got from Ding. He saw he had a lot of different things, including hundreds of life potions. Looking at one of the potions, he noticed it gave 100 health points over 10 seconds. But he knew that even if Ding had used these potions, the healing would have been too slow to save him from the damage. He was meant to die no matter what. His thought was proven right as he saw the new figure by his side, the undead spirit of Ding, covered in a dark blue aura. Yun-che remembered that after killing him, Ding soul had appeared in the mirror world. He took the chance and successfully made him one of his undead. A serious thought came to Yun-che's mind. He could grow his army of high-level undead by killing strong human enemies. Nearby, Ding Shu's unconscious body lay on the ground, a quiet reminder of how brutal the fight was. Meanwhile, the members of the Chiao family watched Yun-che in amazement. The second granduncle couldn't believe that someone so young could be so powerful. He looked at Chiao, who was comforting his mother, and realized that it was Yun-che who had helped Aji, helping him to become stronger in his heart and mind. But fear soon took over. Chiao Li, with panic in his eyes, asked what they were going to do now. He was scared, sure that the Ding family would get terrible revenge for the third master's death. Another family member agreed, saying that no matter how strong the young man was, he would have no chance if the hero, Ding Kun, got involved. He thought that if the hero was able to kill their powerful ancestor decades ago, he would only be stronger now. Yun-che heard their worries, and in his mind, he agreed with them. He knew that once the news of what happened got out, the time he had left to get stronger would be very short. With the powerful image of the hero in his mind, he knew he needed to level up quickly to have any chance of fighting an opponent like Ding Kun. Just then, a system message appeared before him, surprising him as he wondered if something had leveled up. The system message that surprised Yun-che was a warning that his undead army had leveled up. He thought that sending his scattered undead minions to fight monsters all over the dungeon had worked well. With their current level and equipment, his undead army could now completely control this dungeon. However, he knew that this dungeon was not enough for him to level up quickly anymore. This was why he had sent his undead out with a more important goal in mind. His main goal was for them to find the dungeon's real final boss, the Dungeon Lord. He knew that this creature, a level 41 monster named the Giant Eye Demon, was different from a hidden boss, like the wandering lord he had fought earlier. The dungeon lord was the heart of the whole dungeon. By killing it, the dungeon would be finished, and the whole area would fall apart and disappear. This was all part of a bigger, more urgent plan. From a distance, Yunche watched the dungeon's entrance, which was still being guarded by the teacher and the other students. He knew that they must have seen Ding bring the Chiao family into the dungeon. If the Chiao family were to leave on their own now, it would make people suspicious right away. So, his only real choice was to create a big distraction. By beating the dungeon lord and making the dungeon fall apart, the chaos that followed would be the perfect cover for the Chiao family to escape without being questioned. This plan also had another benefit. Destroying the dungeon would stop the Ding family from being able to find out how Ding died, buying Yunche a lot of valuable time. With his plan working, his powerful undead servant, Chiao fought and successfully beat the dungeon lord. The system confirmed his plan worked with two messages. Yunche gained another level, and a message said that the dungeon lord had been beaten and the dungeon was now finished. As the dungeon began to pixelate and break apart, the members of the Chiao family looked around in shock. Chao Li realized with alarm that the whole world was falling apart around them. Yunche appeared before them, calmly explaining that he had killed the dungeon lord. He explained the rest of his plan, telling them that the dungeon's destruction would cause chaos. This, plus Ding sudden disappearance, would slow down the Ding family's reaction time. He told them to use the confusion to escape, promising them that they would be safe for a little while. However, he gave them one final, serious instruction. He told them that if they were ever really questioned and pressured by the Ding family, they should not be afraid to give him up and put all the blame on him. As the world crumbled into digital pieces, Yunchi began to call back his undead servants, a golden light forming in his hand. Just then, a system message surprised him. It showed that his hidden skill, Mirror World, had gained 5,000 experience points. The message explained that by killing the dungeon lord, he had gotten a dungeon core spirit, which was then turned into elements for his skill. A very important realization came to him. The only way to get the experience needed to level up Mirror World was by killing dungeon lords. He thought about the huge power boost the last upgrade had given him. With this new knowledge, a clear path forward opened up. He concluded that if he could level up this ultimate skill again, he would be able to quickly close the huge power gap between himself and his final target, the hero Ding Kun. The scene changes to a private dungeon owned by a rich person. A guard with a mustache and full armor stood on patrol with his partner. He felt their watchfulness was not needed, asking his partner if they really needed to be so serious. He casually suggested they sneak off to play cards, saying that no one would be stupid enough to break into a private dungeon. Just as he spoke, a shadowy figure, Yunche, appeared silently behind him. With a flash of light, Yunche fully entered the dungeon. The guard with the mustache suddenly stopped, feeling a strange presence behind him, but quickly thought it was just his imagination. From the shadows, Yunche watched them, his plan already in motion. He knew that the guards hired for these private dungeons were at most in their 30s in level. To him, these so-called secure places were almost defenseless. A series of clips of his non-stop campaign began. He thought about how close he was getting to his goal. One after another, he stormed through different private dungeons, a blur of motion that left scared guards behind him. He was getting closer and closer to his real goal, the day he would finally be strong enough to kill Ding Kun. The thought filled him with a burning anger, his eyes glowing with hatred, as he reminded himself that he had to control his emotions until that moment came. To reach his goal, he began a planned killing of dungeon lords. He fought a huge, beast-like creature, telling himself to stay calm as the system announced he had leveled up and finished the dungeon. He moved on to another, facing down lizard-like monsters, his mind focused on the fact that calmness was the key to not making mistakes. He faced a huge, centaur-like demon, his determination strong. Finally, now wearing powerful new armor and surrounded by a storm of purple energy, he finished yet another dungeon, his power growing with each win. Yunche's non-stop attack on private dungeons had not gone unnoticed. Newspapers were filled with headlines about the mysterious, bad clearing of many dungeons, causing widespread panic. With each dungeon lord he beat, his ultimate skill, Mirror World, gained another 5,000 experience points, adding up quickly. The media called the unknown person the Dungeon Vandal, and the authorities had started a high-level investigation into the matter. In a hidden safe house far from their old lives, the members of the Chiao family read the news. Chiao Li looked at the paper in disbelief, wondering if it was all Yunche's doing. The second granduncle, his face full of worry, realized the truth. He understood that the sudden clearing of so many dungeons would eventually be connected back to the incident they were involved in. He concluded that Yunchi was purposely drawing the Ding family's attention to himself to create a big distraction. With a rush of emotion, the second granduncle realized how much Yunchi was sacrificing. He was doing all of this for them to make sure they could escape to safety. The family thought about their new life. They were in a secret place, a journey of several days from the Ding family's influence, and had managed to hide without leaving a trace. A feeling of hope began to grow. Chiao Li was still amazed that Yunche would do so much for them, while another male relative expressed his relief, believing they no longer had to live in constant fear and were finally safe. For a short moment, they let themselves believe they could finally be free of the Ding family's control. Their hope was violently destroyed. A huge explosion shook their safe place, the ground shaking beneath them. As the dust and smoke cleared, a scary silhouette appeared in the rubble, his voice full of condescension as he asked if they really thought they could get away from them. The intruder stepped into the light, revealing himself to be Ding Hao, the level 42 second head of the Ding family. He sneered at the terrified family, questioning if they believed the Ding family would be stupid enough to chase after the criminal. He declared that even if they weren't directly connected to the vandal, the simple act of daring to escape the Ding family was a crime in itself, and he had come to deliver a greeting. His face twisted with anger, his eyes glowing red with evil intent. He mocked them, asking if they had really underestimated the power and reach of the hero's family. A huge armored boot slammed down near the scared family members. Ding Hao called them delusional traitors. He then gave his final, devastating news. They had already tracked down the so-called criminal. The scene cut to a huge, heavily guarded complex, the hero's dungeon, where Yunsha and Yunyin were seen watching from a distance. At that very moment, Yunche, now level 42, stood at the entrance to that same dungeon. His journey had led him here, and with a voice full of cold determination, he announced that he had come for Ding Kun. As he prepared to enter, a final message appeared. His non-stop efforts had paid off. His hidden skill, Mirror World, had finally reached level 3. Having reached his goal, Yunche stood with Yunsha, looking at the heavily guarded hero's dungeon from a distance. He knew the private dungeons he had been clearing were only in the level 30 range, and continuing to farm them was an inefficient way to level up. The problem was that all other high-level dungeons were like this one, state-controlled and heavily guarded by the military, with a 2-kilometer perimeter that no one could get near. This was a major obstacle, as his mirror world skill was limited. He knew that when he entered the parallel world, he could only explore within a 200-meter radius of where he entered, making it impossible to sneak past the wide security area without being seen. Turning to the person he had arranged to meet, he realized he would have to rely on Yunsha for help. Yunsha, with a playful and knowing smirk, correctly guessed what he wanted. She asked if he had invited her all the way out here just to get her to take him inside the dungeon, before cheekily telling him it was impossible. She explained that no matter what he knew about her, even she couldn't simply walk in without a proper pass. At that moment, Yunche showed her 2 temporary access permits, the same ones he had stolen from the Ding family. He had come prepared. Seeing this, Yunsha took the passes. However, she pointed out a key detail. A temporary pass needed an official escort to avoid being investigated. Her expression then turned serious, her eyes glowing with intensity. She asked him for his real reason. Why did he need to get past the Ding family and enter this specific dungeon so secretly? Yunche began to explain, pointing to a distant mountain. He reminded her of what she saw in the traitor's dungeon, the heroic last stand of Chiao En. He argued that since Chiao En was clearly not the evil person propaganda said he was, it was very likely that the entire story of the rebellion was also suspicious and worth looking into. Yunsha was not convinced by Yunche's explanation. With a flat expression, she asked if he was treating her like a fool. She began to list the problems with his story, pointing out that it made no sense for him, a total stranger, to risk upsetting a powerful hero just for Chiao Ji. More importantly, she reminded him that he had already broken into the Ding family's home before the events in the traitor's dungeon ever happened. She questioned him, asking if he was trying to say that he had somehow foreseen the truth about Chiao En and had stolen the access passes ahead of time just for this. She then revealed another key piece of information she had. Not long ago, Dingge had entered that same traitor's dungeon specifically to cause trouble for both Yunche and Chiao Ji. However, he had gone missing shortly after and had not been found since. Putting all the pieces together, Yunsha looked at him with sharp, analytical eyes. She concluded that his actions were clearly not those of someone just trying to confront a hero. Instead, it seemed he had a deep, personal hatred towards the hero himself. As she spoke, her gaze hardened. A slow, dangerous realization came to her as she connected the final dots. She noted his name, Yunche. Her eyes narrowed as she voiced her suspicion, asking if he was somehow related to the original traitor from the rebellion, who was also named Yunche. Yunche met her accusation with a playful, disarming smile, Instead of answering directly, he turned the question back on her, pointing out that her last name was also Yun. He asked if that meant she was also related to the famous traitor. The counter question clearly made her nervous. She stammered, insisting that she hadn't done all the suspicious things that he had. Then, in a moment of frustration, she revealed a secret. Her last name wasn't actually Yun. She confessed that she had only changed her name to avoid being bothered. Yuncha immediately used her confession, playfully pointing out that if her name wasn't real, how could she be so certain that his was? His tone then shifted, becoming more challenging. He reminded her that her attitude wasn't like someone asking for a favor, and questioned if she wasn't afraid that he might just reveal her own secret. Regaining her composure, Yuncha held up the access pass with a cool, threatening smirk. She warned him that if she were to simply report him to the guards, he would be the one who was truly finished. The two stood in a tense, silent standoff, their secrets and threats hanging in the air between them. When Yuncha threatened to expose him, Yuncha simply smiled and stated with confidence that he believed she wouldn't do it. This left her flustered and annoyed. He explained the reason for his trust, reminding her of her actions back in the dungeon. He believed that someone who would risk their own safety to protect fellow students would never side with people like the Ding family. To prove his point, he offered her the diary he had stolen from their home. He revealed that it contained evidence of the many evil deeds done by the descendants of the hero Ding Kun, who used their family's reputation to bully and harass innocent people. Yuncha took the diary but was unimpressed, asking if that was his only reason. She claimed that if he was counting on her sense of justice, he was wrong, as she didn't care about such things. With a superior smile, she mocked him for being so naive as to place his life in someone else's hands so easily. She then asked him a sharp, personal question. Had he ever experienced betrayal before? A shadow crossed Yunche's face as painful memories of his past life returned, and he quietly acknowledged her question about betrayal. Yuncha was surprised by his reaction. He went on to explain that whether he had been betrayed or not didn't matter. It wouldn't stop him from being able to trust people. He stated that his trust in her was deeper than that. He believed her basic nature was not evil. This unexpected sincerity left Yuncha visibly flustered, muttering that he didn't seem like a good person himself. Having made up her mind, she challenged him. She told him that if he truly trusted her so much, he should follow her. She dared him to see if she would change her mind and betray him along the way. As Yunche followed her without hesitation, a single bead of sweat trickled down her face. She was shocked inside, finding it hard to believe that after everything she had been through, someone could still see her and trust her as a good person. Upon entering the magnificent purple halls of the hero's dungeon, Yuncha and the cloaked Yunche were immediately met by a guard. The man recognized Yuncha instantly, giving a respectful salute. He welcomed Miss Yuncha, informing her that the hero had been expecting her for several days, and that she could go directly inside. However, the guard's friendly attitude quickly turned suspicious. He noted that Old Master Ding Dan had just entered moments before and questioned why she hadn't arrived with him. His gaze then fell on the cloaked figure with her, asking if he was her guard. He quickly tried to explain, stating that he wasn't doubting her, but Old Master Ding Dan had given specific instructions. He had warned them that a number of temporary passes had been stolen from the family, so they needed to be extremely careful with all visitors. Yuncha became annoyed, confronting the guard and asking if this was an interrogation. The flustered guard immediately denied it. He then revealed the main reason for the high security. They had received an official notice from the authorities. The malicious criminal who had been rampaging through private dungeons was reportedly heading towards the hero's dungeon. Hearing this, Yuncha shot a knowing, amused smirk in Yunche's direction, fully aware of the irony of the situation. The guard continued his frantic explanation, insisting it was all a routine procedure for her own safety. Yuncha let out a quiet sigh and turned to Yunche, whispering to him that the guard seemed very determined to investigate him now. Faced with the guard's insistence, Yuncha laughed and playfully put her arm over the cloaked Yunche, telling him to go ahead and let them check. She then leaned in towards the guard, her eyes glowing with authority, and condescendingly asked if he truly believed she wouldn't be able to recognize her own guard. She continued to mock him, suggesting that perhaps she was a fake and inviting them to check her as well. Completely intimidated by her display of status, the guard stammered that he wouldn't dare. He quickly agreed that if Miss Yuncha was so certain, then there could be no mistake, and he waved them through. As they walked past the guards, Yuncha let out a quiet, satisfied sigh. While passing through the dungeon's portal, she thought to herself that Yunche's true identity must be even more important than she had first imagined. Once they were safely inside, she turned to him and stated that based on the trust he had placed in her, she had fulfilled her promise and brought him in. She added that she would not interfere with whatever he planned to do next. However, she made it clear that her help ended there. Yunche simply thanked her. He then summoned a cloaked, skeletal undead minion and told her to take it and leave. He explained that by doing this, anything he did from that point on would not be connected to her, protecting her cover. Yunche then vanished. Yunche seemed slightly impressed by his thinking, remarking that he had some conscience after all. After she left, Yunche immediately entered the mirror world, the familiar blue-tinted landscape appearing around him. Now uncloaked, he looked at his system, a new, reversed skill displayed before him. With a look of grim satisfaction, he stated that he could finally put his new power to use, the power from his newly upgraded Level 3 Mirror World skill. Yunche looked at the system window showing his hidden skills. His ultimate skill, Mirror World, had reached Level 3. He decided to test his new power, activating the Level 3 Mirror World. The system announced it was setting up a secret area. Inside this new dimension, Yunche found himself facing ghostly copies of powerful monsters, some as high as Level 45. He realized the new function of his skill. The Level 3 Mirror World could copy the monsters found in the real world's dungeon. This meant he could now fight and train against these powerful copies. Yunche summoned his own undead minions to fight with him. He realized that with this new ability, he could freely farm experience inside the mirror world without any risk of being found in reality. After some training, he left the parallel dimension and returned to the real world. A lot of notifications appeared, showing that he was still gaining experience. He understood another key benefit of the upgrade. His undead army could stay inside the mirror world to continuously kill monsters and gain experience for him, even while he was back in the real world. With his undead army now leveling up for him automatically, Yunche turned his attention to his surroundings. Alongside the spirit of Chiao, he stood on a cliff, looking over a vast, grand castle city built within the dungeon itself. He was surprised to find such a city in a secret area and decided it was the perfect time to investigate. As they walked through the woods, Yunche remembered the information he got from the Ding family's diary. He figured this city must be where his target, Ding Kun, lived. He thought about how little he really knew about the so-called hero. He thought that all he knew was that Ding Kun reached S-class many decades ago and hadn't shown his true strength in public since. Even a high-ranking family member like Ding Gai did not know the hero's full power. Yunche knew that having more detailed information would give him a much greater chance of success in his quest for revenge. He found it strange, remembering that in his past life, he knew of every person who had reached S-class rank. Yet Ding Kun seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Hoping for a clue, he turned to the undead spirit of his old friend. He called him by his nickname, Ben, and asked if he knew who Ding Kun was. However, the spirit of Chiao could only tilt its head in confusion, unable to answer. Yunche expressed his disappointment, wondering if his attempt to talk with his undead friend was still useless. He thought that when his SSS rank skill, Mirror World, reached level 3, the intelligence of all his undead minions was greatly improved. The improvement was most obvious in the spirit of Chiao Ben. However, he concluded with frustration that his friend's soul had still not recovered enough to be able to talk properly. Looking out over the huge castle city within the dungeon, Yunche held onto a small piece of hope. He thought that perhaps if he continued to level up Mirror World, Ben might eventually get more of his consciousness back. Meanwhile, inside a grand hall in the castle, Ding Dan walked down a large staircase, reporting to his father. He was worried about his favorite Ding Gai, whom he called third brother, saying that he was still missing and they didn't know where he was. He was speaking to a powerful figure sitting on a throne, a man in intimidating full-plate armor who was Ding Kun, the famous hero of the empire. Ding Dan continued his report, expressing his anger that the criminal they were hunting had dared to come so close to their stronghold, the hero's dungeon. Ding Kun rose from his throne as Ding Dan continued his plea. He reasoned that for someone to have quietly captured the powerful Ding Gai, that person must have also reached the S-class level. For security reasons, he begged his father, Ding Kun, to personally step in and handle the threat. Instead of agreeing, Ding Kun's response was quick and horribly violent. In a blur, his hand, now a shadowy claw with a glowing red eye, pierced straight through his own son's chest. As the life faded from Ding Dan, the menacing, shadowy form of Ding Kun held his son's body. He scoffed at him, condescendingly asking how a man so incompetent he couldn't even keep track of his own child could dare to try and tell him what to do. Ding Dan gasped in disbelief, blood dripping from his lips. The armored figure of Ding Kun looked down on him with complete disgust, remarking on how pathetic it was that Ding Dan only just met the requirements for S-class at his age, yet still couldn't survive a single hit from him. He continued his cold speech, revealing that the only reason he even bothered to keep such a waste like Ding Dan around was just to look after his grandson, Ding Gai. He scolded the dying man more, saying that not only had he failed in that simple task by losing Ding Gai, but now he expected Ding Kun to clean up his mess. A look of pure terror filled Ding Dan's blood-soaked face as he realized the horrifying truth about his father. Ding Kun revealed a chilling secret, explaining that without Ding Gai, he had lost a blood relative. This loss, he declared, would cost him many years of his own life. The scene shifts to the chaotic city streets outside the castle, where a cruel young man with slicked-back blonde hair named Ding Yan, another descendant of the hero, laughed wildly while sitting on a large, beaten man who was his living throne. He cruelly encouraged the starving citizens below to fight over scraps of food, a scene made worse by vicious wolves attacking them as they scrambled. A small child cried in terror as a wolf got closer, and Ding Yan's voice could be heard taunting them all, warning that the food would be all gone if they didn't eat it first. A tall, hooded figure, a level 60 enforcer named Nancy, appeared behind Ding Yan and called him Young Master. Nancy pointed out that Ding Yan's pet, the man he was sitting on, hadn't eaten meat in several days, and he made a dark suggestion. From a distance, Yunche and the spirit of Chiao En watched the horrible scene. Yunche grimly thought that compared to the pure evil seen here, the actions of the other branch of the Ding family he dealt with seemed almost mild. As Yunche watched the cruelty on the streets below, a purple aura of anger began to form around him. He wondered if he should step in and show himself. However, his attention was suddenly caught by something else. Beside him, the undead spirit of Chiao Ben burst out in a wave of blue and black energy, letting out a furious roar in reaction to the injustice he was seeing. Yunche looked at his friend's spirit with a sad expression, calling him by his nickname. He thought that even in his current mindless state, his friend's natural desire to help those in need was as strong as ever. This triggered a memory, flashing back to their shared past. Yunche remembered that among all the children in the poor slums where they grew up, Ben and another boy named Lan Qian were always the kindest and strongest. He remembered finding them standing up to a mean slave driver, and it was this courage that led him to take them both in as his students to train them. His hope was that they would grow strong enough to help others in the future. The memory faded, and back in the present, Yunche was filled with a deep sense of guilt. He blamed himself, thinking that it was his fault that his friend was turned into this undead form. Just then, the spirit of Chiao En turned to him and managed to say a broken, questioning name. Lan Qian? Yunche was completely stunned by this sign of returning consciousness. He grabbed his friend's spirit, desperately asking if his mind had returned and if he could talk, but the spirit only managed to say another broken word. Ding. Suddenly, the spirit of Chiao En exploded with a huge surge of blue energy. It struggled, but finally put together a horrifying truth, declaring that Lan Qian is Ding Kun. The truth hit Yunche with the force of a physical blow, his eyes widening in absolute shock and understanding. The scene cuts back to the throne room, where the armored figure of Ding Kun stood over the body of his son, Ding Dan. After wiping the blood from his gauntlet, he spoke the name Yunche. In his shadowy, menacing form, he wondered aloud if someone was intentionally using a name so similar to his old enemies to provoke him. A grim, knowing look appeared on his face as he thought about how many years it had been since he last heard that name. With a sinister, confident smile, he addressed his old master, who was not there, declaring that he would see for himself who dared to pretend to be his dear master, revealing his true identity as Lan Qian. On the city streets, the cruel Ding Yan speaks to his huge orc-like pets, mocking them for being well-behaved. He tells them he knows they must be starving. With a crazy laugh, he points to the terrified and hurt citizens scattered around the plaza, a scene of violence he has clearly caused. A small, crying child kneels next to a fallen man, too scared to move. With a look of pure madness, Ding Yan declares that since the people are just toys, his pets should eat them all. He gives the command, and one of the giant orcs lunges toward the helpless child. But before the creature can hit, a bright flash of purple light appears. In a moment, the orc is cut to pieces by a series of impossibly fast slices. Yunche lands smoothly, his back to the chaos, his body crackling with a powerful purple aura. His face is cold with fury, his eyes glowing intensely. He thinks the name Lan Qian in total disbelief. He cannot understand how his former student can be the same person as Ding Kun, the monster who causes this horrible scene. His arrival does not go unnoticed. The enforcer, Nancy, steps forward, demanding to know who he is, while Ding Yan looks on in shock. Nancy laughs, calling Yunche a fool for daring to enter the hero's territory to die. But Yunche is lost in his own angry thoughts, his eyes burning with purple fire. He silently screams, wondering how the Lan Qian he knew could possibly raise such a disgusting person like Ding Yan. This brought back another memory, a flashback to a simpler time. A younger Yunche stood before his two young students, Lan Qian and Chiao Ben. He explained to them that because of the great power of class users, the old era of knights was over. However, he told them that as a knight's son himself, there were still values he wanted to teach them. He promised them that with his help, their strength would grow far beyond that of normal class users. As he spoke, the young Lan Qian looked up at him with bright, admiring eyes, clearly inspired by his master's words. The story flashes back again to a younger Yunche teaching his two students, the bright-eyed Lan Qian and Chiao Ben. He explains that if they want to keep learning from him, they must remember a few key things. The first, he says, is humility. The lesson is shown next to a memory of the two boys harvesting a field, with Lan Qian playfully bragging that he was faster than Ben. Yunche reminds them to remember that they are no different from others and must treat everyone with kindness and respect. This is followed by a scene where the boys are being paid by an old man for their work. Ben complains that the pay is too low, accusing the man of cheating them. The calmer Lan Qian quickly tries to stop him, telling him not to make their master angry, but Yunche silences Ben with a sharp command. After the lesson in humility, the younger Yunche gives his students a book, explaining it is an extra reward. He tells them to remember this feeling of being rewarded for their work, and to never let themselves become arrogant. The scene changes back to the present-day battle. Yunche attacks with a furious storm of purple energy slashes. The attack is so strong that it completely breaks Nancy's arcane shield skill, leaving the enforcer wounded and in total shock at his opponent's attack power. Yunche looks on with cold focus. Nancy is enraged, shouting that his equipment was legendary grade level 30 gear and that his protective necklace was also destroyed. Behind him, Ding Yan, filled with anger, points at Yunche, calling him a filthy commoner and promising to show him the true power of someone from a higher class. Unfazed, Yunche charges forward to meet the challenge. This brings back another flashback to his second principle: compassion. The memory shows him and the two boys in a ruined city, giving food and help to a starving, helpless man. Yunche explains that they must be kind to the weak and always use a good heart to fight against violence. This is followed by a scene of the two boys bravely fighting off a large man, defending the weak. The final memory focuses on Lan Qian. Yunche stands behind him as they look down at a captured criminal. He tells Lan Qian that since he himself was rescued from the same slaver group, he should understand the helplessness of the weak and should make a fair judgment. As Yunche charges, he swings his glowing purple sword in a wide, powerful slice aimed at Ding Yan and his enforcer. However, the attack passes through them as if they were ghosts. They turn into black smoke, and the real Ding Yan and Nancy reappear a short distance away, surrounded by the terrified citizens. Ding Yan mockingly comments on how pleased Yunche must be to have slashed one of their illusions. The plaza then fills with dozens of identical copies of Ding Yan and Nancy, surrounding Yunche. The real Ding Yan leans on his enforcer's shoulder and cruelly offers to let Yunche slash more of them if he enjoys it so much. Yunche remains completely calm. Ding Yan continues his taunts, noting Yunche's always angry expression. He cruelly guesses if the anger is for the helpless citizens, and then wonders with sick joy if a family member is among them. He gives a twisted challenge, telling Yunche to try and slash them again. He wonders what Yunche's expression will be when he finds out that in his rage to cut down the illusions, he had actually killed the innocent people instead. As this cruel mind game plays out, Yunche begins to power up his blade of trickery, his sword crackling with purple energy as his attack power increases. A split-screen view shows Yunche's advantage. Through his mirror world skill, he can see both the real world and the parallel one at the same time. He sees the real, terrified citizens and the true location of his enemies, separate from the many fakes in the plaza. With his improved senses, Yunche ignores the bait. He rushes forward, his eyes glowing with purple light. His glowing sword swings in a wide, powerful arc that goes past the fakes and hits the real Ding Yan and Nancy. They are left completely stunned, unable to understand how he saw through their illusion. The story flashes back to Yunche's third and final principle for his students: courage. The memory shows a young Lan Qian and a young Chiao Ben standing bravely against a large group of monsters. Yunche explains that one must be fearless. He taught them that in the battle against the dangers of dungeons, there is no room for fear. One must fight for what is right. The memory shows the two boys fighting hard, wounded, but refusing to give up. After the battle, the younger Yunche finally appears. An angry Ben confronts him, shouting that they were almost killed, while Lan Qian expresses his relief that it's over. The younger Yunche smiles, telling his students not to worry, as he was always nearby, watching over them. Faced with Yunche's amazing power, Ding Yan immediately panics. He admits that his opponent is strong and, in a show of pure cowardice, orders his enforcer, Nancy, to stop using illusions and act as a human shield to buy him time to escape. As he runs, he screams a threat over his shoulder, warning Nancy that if anything happens to him, his grandfather will surely kill him. Left to face Yunche alone, a terrified Nancy desperately tries to cast a powerful spell, summoning a human delusion swamp. He complains that as a caster, he is at a big disadvantage without his illusion magic. Just as he is about to cast, Yunche vanishes from sight. Nancy looks around in a panic, wondering where he went, but it's too late. Yunche instantly reappears directly behind him and, with a single clean swing of his sword, cuts him down. The defeated enforcer desperately begs for his life, claiming he isn't a member of the Ding family and is just a hired mercenary. He pleads with Yunche to go after the escaping Ding Yan instead. Yunche ignores his pleas and delivers the final blow without a word. Meanwhile, Ding Yan's escape is stopped by the ghostly large figure of the undead Chiao, who blocks his path. Terrified, Ding Yan immediately tries to use his family name as a shield, asking what this thing is and reminding it that he is the grandson of a hero. He threatens the spirit, promising to make its entire family suffer a terrible death if it dares to touch him. Before the spirit can act, Yunche appears, summoning a huge, shadowy creature that stands over the terrified Ding Yan. As Ding Yan screams in terror, a system window appears before him, showing a list of all his equipped items, his robe, skill books, potions, and belt, being forcefully taken from his inventory. He can only watch in horror, asking what Yunche has done to him. The scene is shown next to the final principles Yunche taught his students, a strong contrast to the evil he now faces. The fifth principle was honesty. The sixth was justice. The seventh was honor, and the eighth and final principle was soul. The huge, shadowy creature summoned by Yunche attacks, causing a volley of dark blue energy swords to shoot up from the ground and rain down upon the city. Its target, Ding Yan, lies lifeless on the ground, his time of terror brought to a quick and brutal end. Standing on a bridge looking over the horrible scene, Yunche looks down at the bodies of citizens stuck on spikes. He thinks of his former student, Lan Qian, thinking with bitterness on how he had not only ignored every principle he was taught, but had also betrayed both him and Chiao Ben in the past. His sadness turns to pure rage as he thinks about the evil that Lan Qian has let his own family commit, and he silently screams the painful question of why it all happened. A voice cuts through his thoughts, asking, "Why what?" The shadowy, armored figure of Ding Kun, who is Lan Qian, suddenly appears behind him. Before Yunche can react, Ding Kun delivers a powerful punch to his back, mockingly commenting on how much fun he seems to be having in his secret place. The force of the punch sends Yunche crashing into the castle walls, causing a huge explosion of rock and dust. Buried in the rubble, Yunche immediately begins to heal himself, casting a series of basic heal spells as he checks his new powerful equipment. He is now wearing the spider pearl necklace, the distant roar robe, the nether serpent's pants, the nether cave belt, and the nether cave pottery boots, all while his blade of trickery continues to power up his attack. Bloodied but determined, he pulls himself from the wreckage, his mind still filled with the question for his old student. Lan Qian. Why? The shadowy figure of his former student, now fully identified by the system as the level 71 S-class berserker, Lan Qian, also known as Ding Kun, walks towards him through the destruction. Instead of facing him directly, Yunche uses a new plan, throwing a volley of shiny mirror-like shards toward his enemy. Ding Kun easily blocks the objects, confused by what they are and asking if they are mirrors. The shards are a distraction, and Yunche uses them as portals, appearing instantly behind his former student. With his enemy caught off guard, Yunche brings his glowing purple sword down in a powerful strike, his voice filled with the pain and rage of a decades-old betrayal as he screams the question that has been bothering him. Why did you betray us? The strong blow from Yunche's surprise attack shattered a piece of Ding Kun's armor. Ding Kun, touching his damaged helmet, grinned and noted that for someone to break his armor, their speed and attack power must be unusually high. Yunche's eyes glowed with an intense purple light, filled with rage and pain. Clenching his fist, he screamed Lan Qian's name, confirming it was his former student. He desperately asked why he chose to betray them years ago. Unimpressed, Lan Qian questioned the word betrayal as he summoned a huge pixelated greatsword. He thought to himself that this intruder knew his old name and was also using the name Yunche. He wrongly assumed Yunche was an assassin sent by an old enemy. With a wild grin, Lan Qian charged forward, unleashing a powerful swing with his sword that sent a wave of red energy across the area. After Yunche dodged the attack, Lan Qian appeared behind him, mockingly asking if he was trying to impersonate his old master, calling it a bad joke. Ignoring the taunt, Yunche struck again, screaming his question about the betrayal once more, but Lan Qian easily blocked the attack. With a look of pure disgust, Lan Qian dismissed him, saying he was just a tool and that talking was useless. He immediately countered with a powerful swing of his own. The force of their weapons clashing shattered the ground, creating a large crater and forcing both fighters to jump back. As the dust settled, the undead spirit of Chiao appeared at Yunche's side. With a grim look, Yunche challenged his old student, asking what he planned to do about their other friend. Filled with rage, the ghost of Chiao charged forward, roaring Lan Qian's name. Lan Qian looked on in shock at the ghostly form of his old friend. In a flash, he appeared before Chiao's spirit, grabbing him by the neck. With a furious roar, he smashed the spirit's head into the ground, demanding to know how he was still alive. As Lan Qian raised his fist to strike again, Chiao's spirit summoned a golden barrier to protect itself, but Lan Qian shattered it with a single, powerful punch. As the barrier broke, Lan Qian realized the truth. He understood his former friend was now an undead spirit. He noted that while Chiao was revived, he didn't seem to have much intelligence. As he was distracted, Yunche swung his sword at him from behind, but Lan Qian managed to block the attack. Suddenly, 3 new figures appeared on the castle walls above. A man called out to Lan Qian, calling him father and asking why he had come out. The 3 men, all level 60, said they could have easily handled the intruder themselves. Annoyed, Lan Qian told them to get lost. Yunche summoned his own help, calling the undead spirits of Nanxi and Dingge to fight with Chiao, ordering them to keep the 3 men busy. Lan Qian's eyes widened in shock as he recognized one of the new spirits, asking if it was his 3rd nephew. He looked closely at the undead Dingge and confirmed that his nephew was indeed dead. He muttered, "My blood relative," a moment of sadness on his face. However, his sadness quickly turned into a sinister, evil grin. Looking at Yunche with new interest, he said that he was starting to find him interesting. He charged forward again, noting Yunche's ability to revive another person as an undead. As Yunche barely dodged a swipe from his former student's claws, Lan Qian stood over him, his form growing more monstrous and his eyes glowing with a mad light. He called Yunche master, desperately pleading with him to prove that he was who he said he was. With a look of pure insanity, he screamed that Yunche must be his beloved master. Bloodied but determined, Yunche looked at him with cold fury. He thought back to the person Lan Qian used to be, someone who would help others even when he was a suffering prisoner. As his blade of trickery continued to drain his magic to increase its power, Yunche swung his glowing purple sword, screaming in frustration, wondering how his student could have become so crazy and twisted. Lan Qian managed to block the powerful blow. Lan Qian responded with a crazed shout, blaming everything on his dear master. Angered by this, Yunche grabbed him, firing back with furious questions. He demanded to know what nonsense he was talking, reminding him that Yunche had saved him from slavery and gave him power. He asked if Lan Qian had forgotten everything he was taught, but was met with only hysterical laughter. Suddenly, Lan Qian's laughter turned to pure rage as he screamed the real reason for his anger, questioning why Yunche took so long to rescue him in the first place as they clashed again. His twisted thinking was revealed in a painful flashback to his past, where he lay beaten by a slaver. He questioned why he had to suffer so much before being rescued. He then ranted about his life after, questioning why, as the student of a mere knight's son, he was expected to live a comfortable life where everyone was polite. A memory showed townspeople greeting the younger Yunche with respect. Lan Qian bitterly asked why Chiao Ben, who never suffered such horrors, was allowed to enjoy the same respected life. His deep jealousy exploded as he asked why Ben was always stronger than him. He screamed at Yunche, accusing him of favoring Ben simply because his past was cleaner. Finally, he asked the question that seemed to bother him the most, demanding to know why Yunche had him change his class to a berserker. He argued with twisted logic that because he was shy and fearful, he should have been made a guardian knight with stronger defenses, not a reckless attacker. Stunned into silence for a moment, Yunche finally responded. He asked when he ever showed favoritism, reminding Lan Qian that he had always wanted to become braver and stronger, and that was the reason for his choice. Lan Qian furiously rejected this, screaming that it was all because Yunche preferred people like Ben. He insisted that he also tried his best to act brave, but then his tone shifted to mocking laughter. He questioned if his efforts made Yunche favor him more, then accused his former master of looking down on him from the beginning because of his past as a slave, telling him to stop pretending. This accusation finally broke Yunche's calm, his eyes glowing with pure rage. He screamed back, asking about compassion and humility, angrily dismissing all the knightly values he had tried to teach. Lan Qian shot back, asking if any of those values could help him live a better life. He cynically pointed out that the respect Yunche got was only due to his own power. He sneered that unlike Ben, who was fooled by Yunche, he would never waste time and chances for leveling up just to save people. With a look of disgust, he again asked Yunche how he could dare to speak of betrayal. Lan Qian's confession became a proud declaration. He said that since Yunche could choose Ben Ben, he was free to make his own choice. He revealed that good old brother Luo Wei was able to offer him a much higher status and greater power. He crazily told Yunche to look at the results of their choices, comparing Ben Ben's descendants to his own. He laughed with cruel satisfaction, bragging that Ben Ben's family can only serve as slaves under his own Ding family. He mocked Yunche's current state and then pointed to a golden statue of a powerful figure, telling him to look at the high status Luo Wei now holds. As Yunche stood silently, his body crackling with a huge purple aura, Lan Qian delivered his final, taunting question, asking him who he thinks made the right choice in the end. The immense purple energy around Yunche surged violently. His blood-streaked face twisted into a mask of pure fury as he finally snapped, screaming at Lan Qian and calling him a heartless, ungrateful bastard. Fueled by his rage, Yunche leaped into the air and threw a volley of glowing mirror shards at his former student. He then unleashed a blindingly fast and complex attack, teleporting between the shards to strike from multiple angles at once. A storm of purple energy slashes overwhelmed Lan Qian, who desperately tried to fight off the attack. The force was too much, and Lan Qian's strong armor began to crack and shatter under the continuous blows, breaking apart completely. After the devastating attack, Yunche landed, looking down at his hand. He spoke with cold, final judgment, agreeing with his former student on one thing: he truly cannot compare to Chiao Ben. With a look of complete disgust, he delivered his final, crushing insult, declaring that Lan Qian isn't even worthy of being compared to one of Ben's toes. Lying defeated on the ground in his shattered armor, Lan Qian started to laugh wildly. A system window appeared, announcing that the conditions for his skill, Berserker's brand, had been met. Surrounded by a furious red aura, his scarred body now bare, he rose to his feet, laughing like a madman as he screamed that Yunche had finally admitted he had a favorite. Another system notification showed his incredible power boost. His attack power had increased by 300% and his speed by 200%. The skill explained that the lower his health, the more his power and speed would grow. Now in a full rampage state, he screamed that Yunche had confirmed his bias towards Ben, calling him a hypocrite as he dashed forward with blinding speed. The system added that the Berserker exclusive rampage skill greatly increased strength and speed, but lowered intelligence and defense. Yunche was completely shocked by his former student's new speed. Lan Qian moved so fast that Yunche had to retreat into the mirror world just to survive. Lan Qian's powerful strike sliced through a mirror shard instead of him. The force of the missed attack was so great that it cut a massive trench through the battlefield, slicing the castle itself in half. As Yunche reappeared from another shard in the rubble, Lan Qian correctly figured out that he was using the mirrors to teleport and dodge his attacks. To counter this, he activated another Berserker skill, Furious Blood Rain, mocking Yunche for being helpless without his tricks. A storm of sharp, blood-red projectiles rained down from the sky, shattering the ground. Lan Qian challenged him to a direct fight, sarcastically reminding him that knights were supposed to be brave. Caught in the downpour, Yunche began to take constant damage. Meanwhile, Lan Qian walked through his own damaging aura. While he also took small amounts of damage, each hit activated his Berserker's brand, continuously increasing his attack power and speed even more. Convinced he was right, he sneered that Yunche only preached about virtue when he was safe, calling him a spoiled noble who had never truly suffered and therefore understood nothing. He charged forward once more, screaming that someone who had never felt his pain had no right to talk about compassion. As Lan Qian swung with incredible force, Yunche barely managed to dodge the powerful attack. Lan Qian suddenly appeared right in front of a shocked Yunche, mocking his former master's ideals as nothing more than a childish game. With a powerful swing, he unleashed a huge wave of red energy, laughing at the naive idea that friends and students would stay loyal forever. The brutal attack hit, and the force of the blow shattered the ground beneath them. Forced to his knees and trapped in the damaging aura of the furious blood rain, Yunche could only take the continuous hits as his health dropped. Lan Qian laughed at his pathetic state, taunting him about how weak he was without his mirrors. With his magic almost gone, Yunche had to drink a healing potion, barely managing to counter the constant damage he was taking. Lan Qian slowly moved closer, gloating that even if he did not attack, Yunche could only struggle to survive the damage from the blood rain. Seizing a moment, Yunche lunged forward in a desperate counterattack, but Lan Qian easily blocked it, saying that his master had not been so fragile in the past. With a cruel sneer, he declared that this was the price of being naive, and that Yunche should thank him for the lesson. In a swift move, Yunche summoned a small, ghostly dagger and tried to stab him up close. However, Lan Qian easily caught the blade, continuing his twisted lecture by saying that only by being betrayed could one truly grow up. He began his own counterattack, mocking Yunche about how terrible it must feel to fall from such a high position. Yunche managed to block the strike, but as their blades locked, Lan Qian delivered his final, crushing taunts. He gloated about how Luo Wei had become a respected king loved by the people, while Yunche himself had been called a traitor, hated by all. Straining with all his strength, Yunche struggled to hold back Lan Qian's immense power. With a final, taunting question asking if he felt jealous, Lan Qian easily overpowered his former master, sending him crashing into the rocks. Buried in rubble and still taking damage from the furious blood rain, Yunche's health dropped to a critical level as Lan Qian laughed wildly. The victor approached, stating that Yunche's life was about to end and that his only way to survive was now in his hands. With a twisted, cruel look, Lan Qian made an offer. If Yunche admitted that he was wrong and got on his knees to beg for forgiveness, he might be allowed to live as his pet. However, this offer had one key condition: he must reveal the secret of how he could bring the dead back to life. In the darkness, seemingly beaten, Yunche quietly admitted, "I was wrong." As he spoke, he summoned a new pair of daggers, the ghostly daggers. He clarified his statement, declaring that his mistake had been saving Lan Qian from the slavers all those years ago. As a powerful golden aura began to surge around him, he continued, stating that his second mistake had been trusting heartless people like him. Suddenly, a system message flashed, announcing that Yunche had leveled up. Lan Qian looked on in shock, realizing that his opponent's status had been fully restored. Yunche continued listing his past mistakes. He had been wrong to believe that he could win people over by setting a good example, and wrong to think that good people could not turn evil. All this time, his undead minions had been continuously farming experience for him inside the mirror world, providing the final push he needed to level up. With his health and mana now full at level 46, he stated his next mistake had been strictly following the Knight's Code. He activated a series of powerful buffing skills from the new daggers, including Aura of Swiftness and Evil Possession. His appearance changed dramatically. His hair turned a ghostly white, and he was covered in a powerful ghostly blue aura as his attack power soared. He declared that virtues were not needed to deal with scum like them. With a new look of cold, ruthless determination, he concluded that all that was needed was to eliminate them by any means necessary. Now fully powered up, Yunche charged forward, his new ghostly daggers crackling with energy, and met Lan Qian head-on. The two engaged in a fierce, high-speed battle, their attacks clashing in a blinding storm of blue and red energy that tore across the ruined landscape. Lan Qian laughed wildly, thrilled by the fight, screaming that this was how it should be. However, after easily blocking one of Yunche's strikes, he began to mock his former master. He had thought Yunche had learned a new dual-wielding class, but he now saw that he was just awkwardly holding two daggers. He scolded him, saying that using an unfamiliar fighting style in a real battle was suicide, and that Yunche seemed to have forgotten the lessons he had once taught him. As a memory of his own past suffering flashed in his mind, Lan Qian swung, but Yunche vanished before the blow could land. Lan Qian was left confused by his opponent's sudden disappearance, but only for a moment. Yunche instantly reappeared behind him and drove a dagger deep into his back, causing him to spit up blood. Enraged and in pain, Lan Qian spun around to counterattack, but Yunche vanished again. He screamed in frustration, demanding to know how it was possible when all his mirrors were shattered. Frantically searching, his eyes landed on a pool of his own blood on the ground. He saw a reflection and realized the horrifying truth. Yunche did not need mirrors, but could use any reflective surface, even blood, to teleport. Furious at being tricked, Lan Qian unleashed a powerful ability, causing tendrils of blood to erupt from the ground and cover the entire area. He admitted that Yunche had found a loophole, but declared that this new move would leave him with nowhere left to run. Activating his ultimate skill, Blood Frenzy, he confidently stated that now there was nothing left for his master to use for reflection. Just as he finished his boast, a shadowy blade pierced straight through his chest from behind. He turned in utter disbelief to see the ghostly form of his other former friend, the undead Chiao, standing right behind him. He weakly questioned when he had gotten there and how they could have performed a sneak attack. Across the battlefield, Yunche, now back to his original appearance, calmly recalled his undead minions. He stated that there was no need to follow the Knight's Code when dealing with someone like him. The battle was over. Surrounded by the ghostly flames of his undead army, Yunche stood over the fallen body of Lan Qian. With a look of absolute, cold hatred, he delivered his final sentence, declaring that he only wanted one thing: for Lan Qian to die.